Okay, we're live. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Holy Humanist. Today, you're all here for part 6, and what we think might be the final part, actually, today, if we can get through it, which hopefully I'm sure we will do. So we're going to get cracking with the presentation, and obviously any questions via super chat for that specific topic will be given priority, and then hopefully today we'll have some time at the end to leave room for Q&As if anyone has any questions towards the end. So yeah, once again, thank you all for being here. Thanks to everybody who has come along and supported us and made this whole presentation viable and has really benefited from the material and kind of even dug deeper into Lloyd's archive of research, which is a plethora of information. That is a treasure trove, as I like to call it. So yeah, once again, very, very grateful to have Lloyd here with us and for him to be as kind as to share that information with us. So yeah, I hope you guys are going to enjoy this 6th and final part. And as always, if we can keep the chat on topic as much as possible, much appreciation to all my mods who do that. And yeah, just keep it clean and sweet. And yeah, that's it really from me. Without any further ado, Lloyd, thank you so much for coming back for part 6 and for taking us on what's been a journey so far.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been really stimulating being on the channel. The questions, the engagement with the audience. Your audience is fantastic. Some of the funniest, smartest people. So,
Thank
it's been
you.
a good time.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. Hi, Josie. Hi to all the regulars. John Stopman is here. Hi, John. Hope you're doing okay and had less coffee today. Zach Ross, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Kiko Lanzik, hi. Yeah, basically, hi, everybody. And thank you. As more and more people join, we will get cracking on the presentation so we can kind of really have a holistic approach to this at the end and kind of wrap it up nicely. So yeah, Lloyd, the floor is yours whenever you are ready. Oh, also, I just wanted to say, sorry, just again before we start, please, whoever's watching, if you haven't already subscribe to Lloyd's channel, it is in the description of this video. So please go ahead and subscribe to Lloyd's channel, share the videos, like them, and subscribe. He does so many other topics separate from this and deep dives into Sharia and things like that. I mean, I've learned so much as an ex-Muslim myself. So yeah, there's so much to be learned out there. It's very, very educational. Yeah, so please do go ahead and do that. If not now, but by the end of the stream. And yeah, Lloyd, we can get cracking whenever you are ready.
No, awesome. Thank you. Just out of interest, what was most helpful to you from the Sharia information? What has helped you the most, been the most enlightening for you?
For me, it was actually the depths of darkness, can I say, within Sharia, and the fact that a lot of Islam actually comes down to, as you mentioned, this actual unlawfulness, but how much is actually permitted, that you and I would assume is just terribly unlawful and morally reprehensible. But all of that is part and parcel of the actual supreme message of Islam. So the doctrines that you showed us of lying and deception and the impacts of magic, so insofar as they actually affect the Sharia as well, and the Sufi kind of hierarchy where the Sharia is the most known and stems from. All of that, to be honest, all of it, Lloyd. I have no specific point. It's just it just opens a whole can of worms from what you think is the punishment for stoning to death, or the punishment for adultery, or the laws of divorce. It's actually way more than that.
Yeah, on that point, I've mentioned to you next week I will be doing recording with Jay Smith. Finally, we've set a date, and
amazing.
Yeah, but for instance, David Wood did a debate recently with Perfect Dawa, and they were discussing Sharia law. Really, it should have been arguing about Quran verses and the
Right.
Hadith. That's really what they should have called it, arguing, going in circles about the Quran and Hadith. That's really what that was, because Muslims want you to focus on the Quran, because it's like saying, do you like my cake? And then I show you flour, a bowl of flour, unmixed dry flour. Do you like my flour? Is not the cake. Flour is not the bakery. The Sharia is like the bakery, and I'm showing you the flour. The Quran is like the flour. Now, to make something of that flour, you're going to need eggs, you're going to need sugar, you're going to need an oven, you're going to need a recipe, you know. And then so the Quran is that flour, and you focus so much on the flour, but you're missing all of the rest because they don't want you looking at everything else, because the Quran is a component of the Sharia, just like, for instance, just like plastic is a component of a car, but plastic is not a car.
Exactly.
You can have,
yeah. It's like the sum of the parts as opposed to just the part.
yeah, correct, it's a part. Now technically they can say a law in the Quran is the Sharia. Yes, it's the will of Allah, but you might have a verse that says don't don't burn the food. Let's say there's a law in the Sharia, don't burn the food. Okay, what food? Right? What is the right temperature? Okay, what if it's a Friday? What do I cook? What if it's 10 people? How do I divide the portions? All of these questions aren't answered in that one little verse.
True.
Understand? So now, how do you apply it to all of the myriad possibilities of circumstances in life? Well, that is going to be the fiqh, which extends that. So you've got one verse in the Quran that's 12 words, and then you'll have a 2,000-page book that explains it to you.
Yeah.
Which is the Islamic law. And they want you to ignore that book and focus on those 12 words and debate, what does those 12 words mean?
Whereas the actual the meat of the manual is, as you said, in the fiqh itself, which I think again comes back to the most shocking thing for me was the most links I could make to derive Sharia myself, besides what the Islamic jurisprudence actually does, was to turn to the Quran, because that's already like implied to be everything within the Quran is Sharia at some level, right? All the commands in that, and then you use the Hadith to like follow up and embed the Sunnah, because that kind of falls into part and parcel of the Sharia. But to go that bit further and to access these materials in Arabic and uncover the fiqh in the way you've done, again, they can just be such a like far-reaching concept for a layperson like myself to even deep dive into. So I just think, oh, the Sharia is just this, like what God has commanded us. But as you said, you've got to turn back there, and then it all kind of unravels, because that's where the heart of Sharia lies. And showing the Quran and the Hadith is just snippets of that.
Yeah, it's like ingredients. It's just like little ingredients.
That was a fantastic analogy. Casey agrees.
Yeah, no, thank you. So okay, well, we can jump. Let me share my screen. Let me go to.
Sure.
So if anyone has any questions, please ask. I'm happy to try to clarify and to provide as much information as I can in the time that I have. So just to recap a little bit of getting everyone up to speed. So the topic has been Islamic monotheism, right? Because Muslims like to say Islam is monotheism. Well, it seems to me, at least according to the evidence that I have, it is monotheism, and it is very much linked to the original moon gods of Babylon, right? And we've also spoken about Yemen, especially focus on Yemen, Ethiopia, and of course Abraham. And then, so just briefly, we've examined archaeology, history, language, and the Islamic sources and the confluence of those. Right? We've looked at the northern thesis. We've looked now also at different evidence about the south, which has been overlooked. We've looked at the influence of Christianity in early Arabia, right? Well, early influences of Christianity in Arabia. And we've shown that proto-Islam can be traced to Yemeni and Ethiopian paganism, which is then traced to Babylonian paganism, which, as far as I can tell, seems to be derived from Egyptian paganism. But whatever. So, yeah. So I'll leave that at that. Then I'm going to jump forward, and today I need to go back to
Lloyd. Just as a side note, because it is currently like Ramadan and Eid is coming up, and all the talk of like the moon sighting for Eid, it's just now I just see it all so differently after what we've been through in this presentation.
The moon, yeah. Why are they excited about the moon?
Yeah.
Ask yourself. Well, ask yourself, what is Muhammad? Okay, so the Quran says Muhammad will do no miracles and has done no miracles, but there's one miracle especially that everyone's very proud of Muhammad doing. What miracle was that? Think about it.
That he split the moon while everyone was supposedly asleep.
So wait, he split the moon, you say?
Indeed, the moon. He split
the
moon.
He didn't like bring a
True.
star down from the sky, or
Yeah.
he didn't like, I don't know, lift up an elephant, or maybe, he didn't I don't know, part the waves, something like that. No, he split the moon. So
Yeah.
the moon,
Out of all the bodies out there, all the celestial bodies, the moon.
the moon. No, why is that so important? Because it's the moon. Once more, the importance of the moon. He's showing the pagans, I have control over the moon. You
Yeah,
see?
exactly. Yes, Lloyd. Oh my God. Do you know what? Just to further that, when I was young, and I'm not sure if this is anywhere in scripture, but obviously growing up in a Muslim household, this is what I was told as a story to show how incredible the prophet's like birth was. Apparently, when he was younger, when he'd rock in a cradle, the moon would rock to the side of his cradle, is what I was told. And as a
No way.
child, I remember hearing that as like probably a 5-year-old and being like, whoa. But again, the moon, I don't know why that story had to have been passed down so many times with emphasis on the moon would follow the position his cradle took. The moon would change position for him.
So moon symbolism, it's all about the moon
Yeah.
constantly. So one has to ask. Josie Wales asked an important question there. Um,
This one?
yeah. So
Yes.
what's the most shocking thing? So I mentioned to Nuria last week that while researching Quran 65:4, I think, which is the one about um, marrying someone who hasn't yet had, or divorcing someone who has not yet had their daily courses, their periods.
Mhm.
I read through the Islamic law on divorce, and it's explicit within the Islamic sources, that there is no lower age limit to the woman you can have sex with. There is no lower age limit. Infants are fair game. And I showed you a little bit of that. And to be honest, the first time I read it, I I sat here in shock for about 20 minutes, and I nearly cried. It's hard to explain to you people, but the emotional shock of reading it, I
Mhm.
I sat here and I probably did cry. It was just so shocking to me that this law allows, you know what the crime is called. So
Yeah.
so that this is legal, and this is considered moral, it is considered righteous, it is considered lawful. And I was shocked. It was a lot for me to take in, and I just didn't know what to make of it. So it was horrific reading through the texts.
Yeah, I completely hear that, Lloyd. I mean, you did that through your own like research. I did that on a lower level, going straight to the Quran and the Hadith, finding out about Aisha as a Muslim believing woman at the time. So I completely hear what you're saying. That level of disgust on what you're reading, like it's hard to stomach it. It really is. There was like a couple of times when I read it just to be sure that I've read it correctly, my eyes aren't deceiving me, and then like a shot, like your faith just crumbles. That's at least what happened to me, to the point of disgust. And then it's even harder because you're around people and you can't really say what you've just found out because it will shatter everything they've ever known. So it's like you're holding in this secret which is so repulsive, and other people are there bowing up and down to the man who's like caused all of this. It's horrible. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, it's
Actually,
exactly, yeah.
it's someone asked about, so okay. I'm not going to go into the Sharia. I'm going to go into
Sure.
Islam QA. Islam QA is the biggest, I believe, advice site or fatwa site in Islam worldwide. It
Hmm.
gets between 150 and 400 million visits a month. That's roughly up to a quarter of the Islamic population visits this site. An equivalent of one quarter of the Islamic population in the world visits this site every month. This is a fatwa. Uh, so this is called On Acting and the Ruling on Marrying Young Girls. I will drop this in the chat right now.
Okay, thank you.
So that's in the chat right now. I will give it to you as well, Nuria, so you have a copy in the private chat. I'll just drop it in there.
Oh, cheers,
Okay.
Lloyd.
So this is on acting and the ruling on marrying young girls. So okay, so this is off the cuff now, but okay. So marrying a young girl before she reaches the age of adolescence is permitted in the Sharia. There is scholarly consensus on this point. Okay. So notice marrying young girls. Now, So either in the case of divorce of a girl who does not have periods, the Muslim scholars here are admitting this is about the divorce of a young girl who does
Yeah.
not have periods.
Prepubescent girls, exactly.
Yeah, because she's young and has not yet reached puberty. Okay.
Yeah.
So Allah has made this a valid marriage.
Because that's exactly how, with the age that the Prophet married Aisha, she was
Okay.
prepubescent at the time.
Yeah. So it says here, this is narrated from Aisha. He married her when she was 6 years old. So they confirm this Bukhari and Muslim, right? But now, so it says here, with regard to the wedding part of a young married girl at the time of consummating the marriage. Okay. So if they agree that she won't be harmed, now this is not true. They're lying here, flat out. Then it may be done. You may have sex with her. Okay. That it is permissible to
Wow.
have intercourse with her. Okay. It is permissible to have intercourse with her. Okay, this is the prepubescent girl they're talking about. There is nothing in the hadith of Aisha to set an age limit or to forbid that in the case of a girl who is able for it before the age of 9.
Wow.
Okay,
It was horrible. Yeah.
understand? So they confirm this here. This is
Yeah.
now this is read by millions of Muslims. So understand that this is confirmation. Even this is why going to the Sharia, but they're deriving this from the Sharia.
Yeah,
That
for
this
sure.
is
I mean, the
legal.
Quran itself has this, right? I mean, it's to the point where even Muhammad Hijab had to go out and say that the Quran technically allows marriage to girls without a lower age limit. He said that the Quran enables pedophilia. It's there as
Yes.
well. Don't even
Yeah,
have to
it's
deep dive
perfectly
that
legal.
much. Exactly.
Yeah. So we ended here last week, right, on
Mhm.
megaliths, and I want to bring some attention to this idea of the megaliths of the ancient history. I did start off the presentation in episode 1 talking about these 50 circles, the roaring man. Yes, it is. It's disgusting. I promise you. I felt sick reading some of this stuff once you go into the Islamic law itself. So I spoke about these 50 stone circles that were found in northeastern Arabia, close to Jordan, I believe, or close to Syria. But I want to show you something else. This is a place called Alula. Okay, just look at
Mhm.
these cans. Look at these shapes. So some of these shapes are like this is like 120 meters long, I believe. Okay,
Right.
these
Okay.
are these are Neolithic, so they're like what 9,000 years old. So they have now discovered because some archaeology is being allowed in some of these remote places in Arabia. They have
Mhm.
now found megaliths that are older than Stonehenge,
Wow.
7,000 years old. Okay, look at these designs here. You can see this design here. These megaliths. You'll notice these are
Wow.
similar. These old carvings they've been finding, right?
Yeah.
So some of these carvings you can see it from the air. Some of these are like 50, 100, 120 meters long,
Damn.
right? You can see here, and I'll show you a couple more in a moment. Okay, I'll go here. This is Alula. Look at this, very similar to Petra.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's very similar. You're
Now,
right.
what is interesting is there are
This,
apparently 50,000 sites like this across Arabia. 50,000 of these stone monuments of this and other types,
damn.
right?
So this is actual archaeology from Saudi Arabia itself?
Yes, yes, this is Alula,
Wow. And
right?
are
So
these recent discoveries, Lloyd, or
yes, this only goes back apparently a few years that people have been allowed to travel there, and now international
right?
teams are moving in. So look at these. The some of these are over 7,000 years old. So this
Bloody
shows
hell.
that look
That's
at these. Some of these are
hmm.
burial sites. Look at this. This is like the Nazca lines in Peru.
It is, yeah. You're right. Oh my
These are
God,
huge.
that's mad.
Yeah. So these are enormous. All right. So these designs, these things go way back. So clearly there was also, so when you look at this old religion, the original
Yeah.
religion, maybe the religion of Abraham, I don't know if it's linked, but there was Neolithic pagan religion going way back. So I just thought this might be interesting that you see all of
And
this.
this is
So
on a
you'll
grand
see,
scale, as you're saying, like these are aerial pictures of them, and you can
yeah,
kind of gauge like the size.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see there's more of them. I mean, there's just loads of these shapes and
That is
designs.
so fascinating. I did not know this was being found out in Saudi Arabia at all.
Yeah, I discovered this week.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So there's a very interesting Alula. Just look it up.
Sure.
Alula. Just look it up. And so also I wanted to mention. Remember I mentioned this guy Jagged 85.
Oh
he was
yes,
considered user of the month on Wikipedia once.
oh my God, is that because of how
Yes,
many entries he put in?
yeah,
Is that
they
like
were
a
really proud of him.
quantity thing? Yeah,
They were
because
really proud of him,
it wasn't true, but he sure made enough edits to pass as like the most active
yeah.
participant.
And it's especially that done by user Jagged85. Okay, it's very biased and uses questionable sources, but besides that, he was actually given, I nominate user Jagged85 due to his efforts. He was selected as the best participant of the month. And notice it's a bunch of Muslims who recommended him as the best editor at Wikipedia.
Oh, of course they did. Oh my
He has
God.
improved articles about Muslim scientists as well as Islamic sciences.
Okay,
Right?
let's dig a bit deeper when when they talk about improving articles. So he's basically falsified articles to make sure that they still have like a semblance of hope to survive in this day and age.
Yeah. And he made 87,237 edits.
Flippin' heck,
All
87,000.
fake edits.
Oh my gosh. Do you know what period that is over?
He did 67,000, I think, between 2012 and 2015 or something. Actually, they do give
Wow,
dates. This is on
this
Wikipedia
user,
itself, right?
yeah,
You can see he's been banned.
yeah,
This user was banned.
yeah,
Um,
about
so
time.
this was around 2010. So between I think 2010 and 2015, at that point he'd made 67,000 edits. He then did another 20,000 before he was banned. So
Dedication. He's probably employed like an army of bots as well to, carry it
who
on.
knows? So understand. So there's a huge effort by these guys to do this. I mean, so they discuss this guy. So user of the month. Okay. But anyway, so when I spoke of the megaliths, so the
Mhm.
kaaba, remember they said the kaaba has characteristics of being a megalithic structure based on the stars, based on the planets, and based on the solar lunar positioning, as well as based on the winds to
Mhm.
calculate the weather, to calculate crops, or who knows what it is. But if
Right.
you look at the amount, with these apparently now 50,000 sites like that, that tells us that yes, maybe the Kaaba is originally based on this old religion that was Neolithic. So
Right.
that's what I want to do.
Wow, okay.
So that's why I wanted to show that. So the Kaaba was a kind of microcosm of the celestial and terrestrial universe of the pagan Arabs. The sun, the moon, Canopus, the brightest star in the southern sky, of the winds, the rains, and the geographic directions. And they wanted to unify all of those. And so therefore the Kaaba would seem to be a merger of all of these astronomical, meteorological things,
Wow. So
and
really, as you were saying, like the focal point of the celebration of all of those things on Earth as well.
yes.
But I love that sentence there, Lloyd, because that encapsulates it so well. The Kaaba as a microcosm of the celestial and terrestrial universe of the pagan Arabs. It is all encompassing in that sense. So you can imagine like the sacredness associated with it
Yeah.
from even
So
back then. Yeah.
yeah. So then, okay. So let's go back to the gods. So we should finish this today. It's not that many slides. So Atar. Atar has a lot of similar names. A Semitic deity, role, name, and gender varied by culture, either male or female. So gods can be male or female, always
Mhm.
identified with Venus. And in pre-Islamic South Arabia was worshipped as a god of war.
Right.
Alat is believed to have been introduced into Arabia from Syria and was the moon goddess of northern Arabia. Now, we also know that another god was brought from Syria in fact, I mentioned it from the Sira earlier on, a couple of episodes ago, and that was the god Hubal. So
Yeah.
Hubal was brought from Syria. Now, this leads me to wonder, are they both the same god that was brought from Syria,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So she corresponds to the moon deity of South Arabia, Al-Makkah, right? Now, and Wad, okay, which is one of the names of Allah, love or something like that. Okay, so Wad is one of the characteristics. So sometimes a tribe would take a characteristic of the god, and then they would venerate that characteristic. It's like, let's say you walk down a street and you see the Church of the Redeemer. Now you see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Then you see the Church of the Lamb. Those are not three separate religions. Those are simply the same church, but different denominations that have just taken one aspect of the deity and they've named it, they've taken that deity, that aspect. And this is in some cases what this seems to be. They've just
And
taken
what
one.
you're describing here, sorry, exactly what you're saying is that they've focused on one attribute for that sake and or one god in that sense. It's a very similar pattern to a lot of these like pagan or polytheistic traditions where the god eventually like divides into so many various gods based on an attribute. So you are venerating that attribute, or you've chosen that god as your personal god. Like in Hinduism, a lot of people have a favorite god almost, or like a god of their choice or choosing. So yeah, that's also, again, that makes complete sense what you're saying for pagan society.
Yeah, and the notes that I have here says that you've got Al-Makkah, okay? So she corresponds, so Alat corresponds to the moon deity of South Arabia, Al-Makkah, but it's the male version. Remember, Alat, Allah. What's the
Mm-hmm.
inverse of Alat? Is Allah. And who's Allah?
Yeah.
Al-Makkah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
Al-Makkah seems to be the bright white light or the Nur, the
Mm-hmm.
moonlight, right? You have Wad, or Sin, as he was called. So these are all the names of Al-Makkah. Now, here's a question. So Alfonso Harris or Jason Boring or whatever has a couple of single points he likes to repeat over and over because they're the only ones he has. I've provided, I believe, dozens of references from multiple scholars, multiple papers, multiple sources that have shown Al-Makkah to be a moon god. Now, he quotes a single source constantly. There's only one source. It's in Britannica, but it's derived from the Anchor Bible Dictionary, and that is derived from a study, a flawed study from 1972, early 1970s, by Gorbini and Perrin, which is quoted by a scholar called Rickmans, who just assumed that those guys were correct.
Right.
So the overwhelming majority, dozens and dozens and dozens of scholars, and even the modern scholarship, all insist Al-Makkah is a moon god. I've shown numerous references. However, this scholar, Garbini and Perrin, basically what they found was, so these guys were trading with Greece. They were trading all over with the Roman Empire, and they would bring back statues. If you go into, I've got a document on iconography, statues.
Mm-hmm.
So they would go to Greece and they'd say, hey, that's a pretty statue. That looks like our god. And they would bring it back and they would stick it in the temple because the
Right.
Greeks had a long history of making beautiful statues, which the Arabs could not produce. So now you find a statue of a Greek god or a Roman god in Arabia, and this guy goes, oh wow, hey look, it's Dionysus.
Yeah.
Except it's not Dionysus to the Arabs, to the Yemenis. It's their
Yeah.
god. They've now just bought the statue, right?
Yeah.
So that this confusion has set in, and then of course the Western scholar goes, well, it's the moon, so the moon is feminine. Well, not in Arabia, and some scholars did not realize that, so they've made these two mistakes, and therefore that's the one single source that says Al-Makkah is a sun god. Either way, Al-Makkah is still Allah, and therefore Allah is still a pagan god, regardless.
Yeah.
But
Regardless, you end up there. Yeah.
notice every other incarnation of Al-Makkah is a moon god or a sun god, Nuria.
Mm-hmm.
Under all of his different names, he's a moon god. He's a moon god. Every single incarnation of Al-Makkah is a moon god. So why would John Smith, John, Robert, James, Alfonso, Mark, Jim Smith, okay? He's all of those other names are males, and then when you get to Robert, it's a female.
Yeah.
It's the same guy. How these are the same god? They're all moon gods. Why would Al-Makkah be female when all of his other incarnations are male, for instance? Or why would they all suddenly be? Every single incarnation of him is a moon god. Why would that one be a sun god? It can't be, because he's a moon god in every other incarnation. He's a moon god.
Yeah, true. And then also when you look at even the emphasis on Alat as well, being the moon god or goddess of North
Yes.
Arabia, again, that just emphasizes that point even more. I guess that inversion point, or understanding the fact that cultures have inverted the sexes in terms of their gods as well, is then so crucial, because that's when you can make that link and say, yeah, Allah is the moon god, which, I mean, I'm really starting to believe this more and more from the evidence that's coming out. But yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that's a really solid point, and that will stop people from believing you can make that connection.
Yeah. So this is the one thing that he loves to, this one particular troll loves to say. I've invited him up many times.
Yeah.
I've invited him to have a talk with me, with Thaddeus, he refuses to come up. He snipes from the comments, but he will not simply, you want to make a presentation. If you're so confident, please make a video. Please make a presentation. We'll give you the platform uninterrupted. Present your evidence. But okay, so this is okay.
Challenge. There you go.
Yeah, but he won't. So Arabia shared the gods of Mesopotamia, being so close to Babylon. So here you've got from this, the Archaeology of World Religions, Jack Finnegan is one of the sources I'm using here. Okay, except the genders and the symbols of these deities were later swapped around. The sun god Shamash became the sun goddess Shams, and in southern Arabia, Ishtar became the male storm god Attar. But the moon god in Arabia was always the moon god, was always male. Yeah. Okay, so it's the same deity, in many cases renamed, but these were the secondary deities. You had the primary creator, then you had his wife and children.
Yeah.
Right.
And the moon god was the supreme, right, Lloyd?
Yes.
In all cases, right? Okay.
Yeah, because he's Sin of Babylon.
Yes.
So
okay,
Sin,
that was it.
Yeah. So the temple was built by Muqarrab, or priest king. Okay, so Muhammad was a priest king. So you've got the Muqarrabs again, named blah blah, and it was dedicated to Al-Makkah or Il-Mukka, and he's got many names. I found that there's like a dozen names of this guy, and also there's typos and spelling mistakes. So you've got to look up every one of them or know every one of them. He was the moon god, corresponding to Sin in Mesopotamia. That's the archaeology of world religions. Okay, he was the chief deity of the Sabaeans, right? And so he was known to the Manaeans by the name of Wad, to the Katabanians as and to the Hadramatis as Sin. This is northern Arabia and this is southern Arabia. So all across Arabia, okay, there he was. Sin of Babylon. His consort was the sun. His wife was the sun, unless it was a lesbian relationship between two female goddesses, but that was not the case.
Yeah.
Right. Shams, the same as Shamash in Mesopotamia, that's Babylon. Their son, who completes the triad, was Attar. He was the planet Venus and corresponded to the Babylonian Ishtar. She was female.
Right, yeah.
Right. So now you've got further confirmation of this whole thing. So now, this is a thesis from 1990 by this guy, Ahmed Ibrahim al-Mazrou, clearly a Jew who hates Islam, who's writing this. Okay, so a stylistic and comparative study of unpublished pre-Islamic stone sculptures from Arabia. So let's just have a look at this thesis. The religion of South Arabia was an astronomical religion based on the worship of astronomical religion. Interesting. Based on the worship of gods personified by heavenly bodies. Okay, the gods can be incorporated into one triad composed of the planet Venus, the moon god, and the sun goddess. Okay, multiple scholars here. At the head of their pantheon stood Attar. Now, in some places, Attar was the moon god. Remember the original, it seems that Göbekli Tepe and all of those other 20 other locations like it, they worshipped Venus, Attar, right? But at some point, he must have been supplanted by the moon god. He was accorded particular veneration, and to whom most of the shrines of South Arabia were dedicated. His name appears in hundreds of inscriptions, but notice, remember I said last week that according to that DASI scripture database, Al-Makkah appears nearly 2,000 times.
Yeah.
Right. So the name is also compounded into the names of many individuals. So the moon god was known in South Arabia by different names: and Anbay, Il-Makkah, Haubas, Wad. Okay, and Sin. So there you go. As to the Babylonians. So now you've got,
there we go. Yeah.
Again, the third of the triad is the sun goddess, believed to be the consort of the moon god. The sun goddess was known by different local names: Dat, Dibyat, and so on. Okay, to the Sabaeans. Okay, so there you go. So now you've got that triad. Let's have a quick look at Muhammad's children. Abdalat and Abdmanaf. Alat, we've just discovered, is the consort of the moon god.
Yeah.
And Muhammad had children by Khadija. Okay, so he had children by Khadija, and the children, his sons were named Abdal Uzza and Abdmanaf. Both of these are pagan Arabian deities.
The slave of Uzza, that deity, and the slave of Manaf.
The star god. Manaf is the star god.
Wow.
We just mentioned the star god.
Yeah, and let's not forget his father as well, the slave of Allah.
The slave of Allah. And we've discovered in the inscriptions, Allah is Al-Makkah.
Exactly.
Right? So understand. So now why was Muhammad naming his children after pagan gods, unless he was worshipping them?
Exactly. Good question, Lloyd. Great question.
You incorporate the names of your gods into names, like, this is what you do. So Muhammad's pagan family, Hashim ibn Abd Manaf, okay, was the great grandfather of Muhammad. So he worshipped slave of Manaf, the star god, right? So he was of the Banu Hashim clan of the Quraysh. Hashim was the son of Abd Manaf. Oh my golly, His father was Abd Manaf too, right?
Yes.
And Abd al-Muttalib was the first Meccan to introduce the practice of dyeing your hair with henna to his fellow tribespeople, where he learned it on a visit to Yemen.
Yemen. Okay, okay.
So he brought back practices from Yemen.
So he was, I mean, even back then, this is before that, like they were going back and forth. This area was very close knit. You were able to travel, bring back practices, cross culture mixing.
Yeah, so correct. There was a lot of cross-cultural mixing. And notice in this cartoon, they've actually got this cow horn. Notice this cow horn shape, this moon shape here, the crescent. But this is the cow horn.
Yeah, yeah, I see
Actually,
that.
hold on. So yeah, I've got the cow horn. Let me find this.
And Lloyd, just a general question as well.
Yes.
Do you not find it strange that like Muslims don't pick up on the fact that Muhammad's father was called Abdullah as well? And like, do they never sit and ponder on the point that why was Allah kind of there in that time of Jahiliyyah? Why would his father be called such a name? The
You know
slave
what
of
happened to
God.
the last people who asked questions, right? They were turned into rats. They were Jews who were turned into rats.
Were
You
they
don't want to be
actually
turned into a
turned
rat,
into
do
rats?
you?
I definitely don't want to be turned into a rat or a monkey or anything else that comes with
Don't turn
question and
questions. Yeah.
Wow. I just find that
So
such a like simple point to just think about and ponder on for a second, but people are, it's almost like that the goggles are on so strong to refute paganism anywhere you potentially see it or find it.
yeah. So yeah. So Manaf. Well, I mean, does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So Manaf. So guys, if you have questions, please ask. I might miss them, but if there's anything I've missed, just let us know. Manaf was one of the greatest deities of Mecca. Al-Tabari. Okay, Al-Tabari's telling us. I guess Al-Tabari knew what he was talking about. Manaf is the name of a deity of ancient Arabia. He was called the Exalted, which described Atar Venus at its zenith. Okay, and it's an epithet of the sun. So hold on. So from the same root is derived Tanuf, that which climbs high in the firmament. So this is connected. So this is a star deity connected with the sun.
Yes.
Right. So now you've got this linkage again. Right. This
Yeah.
is from the Encyclopedia of
This
Islam, Volume
just
6. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah, volume 6. Sorry, go ahead. Page
Please go on. No,
349.
please go on.
I was just going to say that goes back to that bit of text you showed us from the study as well that was done at UCL, that the thesis, sorry, that was basically saying that Islam can also be traced back to a whole astrological religion in itself. Because here we see that. And also interesting because Allah in Islam is also called the Exalted One at various points. So
Yep. So is Abmanaf one of the four sons and Kamar the moon? Okay, so just again in Tabari, these names are religious names. They go way back. Okay, so these names go back to that region. I'm gonna skip. Actually, this might be interesting. I forgot about this. So Herodotus, the Greek historian from 450 BC, tells us the North Arabians had a god and goddess named Oratal and Alilat. Oratal is simply a corruption of Allah or Allah Ta'ala, God Most High, Allah Most High, Allah Ta'ala, right? Allah has
yes.
been around in pagan Arabia long before Muhammad. So Sheikh Ibrahim al-Qattan, in a lecture given by blah, blah, blah in Vienna, said the religion of Arabia can be traced to the epigraphic and inscription evidence back to 5,500 BC or 1,000 years before Muhammad. He said that gods named Baal Shaman happened to be in Petra, Dus Samawi, Rahman, which they got from Syria, Persia, and the pagan Kabbalist Jews. And don't forget, Rahman was also was the name for God for the Christians, for the
Oh
Arabian
yeah,
Christians,
correct.
right? The merciful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and in fact, remember the inscription spoke of Rahman, and then you had and of and of the Christ, his Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Right? I showed those inscriptions, and that goes back to the time of who's the guy with the elephants? Abraha,
Abraha,
right?
yes.
So Allah was the highest deity. His name was inscribed in stone by Jewish traders along the Arabian trade routes. These paganized Jews also called Allah Rahman, or the Arabs called him Allah. So they were fighting over the identity of Allah or whatever. So these sacred concepts such as Allah, the Kaaba with its black stone, running around the Kaaba 7 times, climbing Mount Arafat, as well as the god named Rahman and stoning Satan, which Muhammad got by revelation, was salvaged from ancient pagans in Arabia.
Wow, wowee. Okay. This is madness.
Right. So now this is called the Tombs and Moon Temple of Hurayda or Hadramaut. This is by G. Catton Thompson. So this is reports of the Research Committee, Society of the Antiquaries of London. And I think a group went back to reconfirm this in 2017. I did speak about that in the beginning. So this particular research was continued after the war, or at least when that region stopped fighting in Yemen. Synopsis:
Right.
The Moon Temple, okay, the Moon Temple of Sin in Arabia. The Moon Temple, the first to be excavated in Arabia, visible from afar on a slight eminence in the cultivated valley, blah, 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 which formed part of the Haram area. Okay. The site was enveloped in sand, and local tradition knew nothing of it. Forgotten site. There were stumps of stone pillars, right? So stone pillars, and we've seen those 6 pillars and the 8 pillars of the moon god al-Makkah. The orientation of the building follows the Mesopotamian practice of setting the corners to the 4 cardinal points, much like the Kaaba.
Yes.
Okay.
True.
The main facade looks southwest. Okay. It's been extended, and there was a complex of small stone shrines and altars. Okay. Great. So, okay, there are 9 inscriptions in graffiti. Okay. All except 1, or perhaps 2, which are Sabaean and are in Hadramaut dialect. That's Yemen. Okay.
Okay.
So in 22 of the inscriptions at this particular temple, the dedication to Sin is preserved. Right. So this is a temple to Sin, the Babylonian moon god Sin, in Yemen. And the deities Himyan, Haul, and Al-Makkah are also named. And we've learned that Al-Makkah and Haul are the same basically as Sin.
Wow,
Right?
okay. And these are actually inscribed there, yeah.
Yeah. So this is what, and then they mentioned here of that they found another inscription that clinched the evidence, okay, which was further supported by shards and masonry fragments, one of which bore the letters S-I-N, the moon god Sin. So now we know Sin was a major feature in the area.
Yes.
Okay. And an incomplete Sin invocation, okay, existed. And they mention this here, and it invokes the moon god under the Sabaean name Al-Makkah.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've got, so now we're linking Al-Makkah to Sin again. There's this connection, right, at this temple to the moon god. And they say here that the architectural influences creative of the moon temple is not easy to assess, right? Though assimilation of foreign models is manifest, the orientation as well as its tutelary deity are rooted as far back in Babylonia.
Wow, okay.
So according to this paper by these scholars here, okay, who are doing this in northern Yemen, this is all taken from Babylon. So these Arabs were adopting Babylonian practices and
trying to mimic it as far as possible in their own localized context.
Yeah.
Also, Lloyd, could you just go back? Sorry, just I think it was
Sure.
the 3rd slide back, 3 slides back. Yeah. I just wanted to point out where you were describing that area that was excavated known as the Haram at the time, the Haram.
Oh, the first one, yeah.
Yeah, because again, today what we see is like the actual Kaaba and Mecca where you go to do like the Umrah and the Hajj. It's still called Masjid al-Haram, and like that's called the Haram, same area, exactly in that way. And that previous slide, I think I mentioned this last time as well, when you were saying that the name Allah Ta'ala actually goes far back as to be named that. That's literally the way we still describe Allah in South Asia today. So that's actually the exact wording we still use. And then the fact that the Haram area, this excavation, I just wanted to put it into context, how far this would be from Mecca as we know it now.
Let me find, I think.
If you know, otherwise it's cool, we can.
Yeah, I need to confirm that which it is, where it is, but.
Okay, sure.
So this is Mecca here. I'm just going to bring this back into focus. I think this is around this area here, Marib. Okay, so this will be about, so we're looking at approximately 800 kilometers from Mecca.
Okay, fascinating.
So I think it's in this area here. It should be in this area.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of put some context to that in my head. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Very interesting.
So, right. So now we know, and we remember at one time these people conquered Arabia, right, all the way up to Palestine, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is from a guy called C.S. Kuhn talking about trade links and war gods. And he mentions here, this is a fairly lengthy article that I've tried to summarize briefly. So the kingdoms of southern Arabia, like that of the Nabateans, were in contact with entire ancient worlds, from Rome to India and beyond, right? Objects of Roman, Greek, Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and Indian manufacture abound, right? So they speak of Syrian and Byzantine manner and Grecian columns, and the names of the gods monotonously repeated. Okay, seated votive idols from phalli to oxen indicate a devotion to religion.
Wow.
Right. So very much involved with religion, but also very international.
Yes, exactly. Literally. But also, Lloyd, just a quick point, sorry, even how
Sure.
you showed us the inscription that was found on some of those earliest like stone pillars, for example, and the inscription of sin actually being there,
Yes.
again, flies in the face of Muslims saying that before Islam it was a complete period of ignorance where there was no writing. Muhammad was illiterate. Nobody knew how to. There were a couple of scribes that could write. Everyone was, it was more of an oral tradition. Everyone retained things through memory. That clearly wasn't the case even years prior to that.
That is, we spoke about that briefly. Yeah, that is completely
Yeah.
false, because have a look here. This is Arabia. This is 4th century Arabia, the 300s. Okay, this is a stone that was found recently. This is fairly recent archaeology.
Mm.
And this is writing that existed. Now, remember, we've shown that there was at least 7 different languages present in that region from like 1000 BC.
Yeah.
Writing was commonplace, and the Yemenis were literate. The traders
Yeah.
were literate,
Yeah.
right? And they traveled all across up into Turkey, so they were literate, right? And it mentions here, and I noticed that this in this sea of stones here, they found rock inscriptions and they found writing. So in the 3rd, 4th century, these people were already literate,
Yeah. Okay,
right?
there we
So
go.
this is
Precisely.
like, yeah, and I've shown much other evidence of inscriptions. We've spoken about inscriptions in Greek, Roman, Latin. Greek, Latin. There was some Indian dialects. There was Sanskrit, I think. There was Nabatean. There was Assyrian. There was multiple languages present in the region. So somehow it all disappeared under Islam,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Conveniently.
Conveniently, exactly. So it says here, a highly civilized agricultural region, right? That flourished near the source of the incense trade route from Hadramut, okay, to Mecca, Medina, and the ports of the eastern Mediterranean. They went all the way up to the Med and across the Med,
Wow.
the
Yeah.
principal route by which goods from India were transported and carried over land, right? So this was a highly advanced at that time civilization. They were connected all the way to Rome, to Greece. They were trading
Hmm.
with Turkey. They were everywhere. Some evidence apparently they went as far as China.
Wow.
So
Yeah, exactly. There's even that hadith where apparently it's one of the ones they scream, Dave, but the one where the prophet says, seek knowledge, even if it takes you as far as China.
oh wow. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, okay, so going on. So there are 2 Sabaean periods. The earlier, called the Mukarrab period, in which the king bore the title Mukarrab, but we know that he was a priest king. And because he
Mm.
served the moon god, who was a war god, he was a priest warrior king, right? Which technically Muhammad was. And then
Yeah.
the second period, the kings became maliks, the common Semitic word for king, right? So now we know that the
Yes.
maliks, so, and of course, the first one of the first major Muslims is Abd al-Malik,
Yeah, true. And you showed
right?
us the root as well of the MLK and how it's derived.
Yep. And then you get the Mukarrab of Saba was Karibailu, the priest of the god Il. Okay, Il. So
Mhm.
now he killed 4,000 men in a war against the Kataban, then turned on and he killed 45,000 while taking 63,000 prisoners and 31,000 head of cattle. So yeah, these are not peaceful people.
Not at
And
all, yeah.
he laid the Najran country waste, destroying the Manaeans forever. And there are Assyrian inscriptions that speak about him. So we know there was a lot of warfare. The moon gods were war gods. They were fighting these wars, also sort of like political, religious wars, and their inscriptions, right?
Yeah.
And so prior to the arrival of Islam, all of this is relatively well known. Then Islam comes along and writing disappears from Arabia. And then once the hadith are all written, bang, suddenly writing comes back,
Yeah, exactly. Again,
right?
hundreds of years later.
Every culture had writing except the Arabs.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And they
Right.
still abide by that claim. But then, Lloyd, it kind of makes sense. It's understandable why they would. And this is why as well I think modern archaeology is so threatening to Muslims, because it completely is showing that the contrary is true.
Right. Yeah. Someone's saying, I doubt the overland trade route, Lloyd. It's faster and cheaper by sea. You know what? I doubt highways exist. It's faster and cheaper by boat. Highways are a
Yeah.
myth. Don't believe your lying eyes. Cars are not real. Boats only. Okay. So if you live over here, and you need to get there with your trade goods, I doubt you're going to go by sea. I suggest in this case, it's now certainly it might be more efficient to go by boat if you're close to the ocean, but that's an if. So what if you lived here? Which ocean are you going to use? You need to travel from here to here. Which ocean are you going to? You can't. You have to then go overland. Unfortunately, the overland route does exist. So okay,
And
now
just
the
as a side
arrival of
note, we also thought looked at the fact that they were a great seafaring peoples anyway, right? And
yeah, they were.
yeah, and even around the Middle East, like the fact that they're like exquisite divers because of like the early trade in like Oman, I'm sure you know as well, like the pearls and the pearl diving, and so what like over time, this is something they've been doing for millennia.
Yeah, yeah, no, agreed. So okay, now the story of
It could have been that, Lloyd, the Barak Express.
that is true. Yeah, that we've discussed the Borak. Yeah.
Mhm.
So now in 24 BC, a Roman governor called Aelius Gallus led an expedition. I've mentioned all of this before. We've jumped back and forth, but led an expedition to conquer this whole section of southern Arabia. And he went down the coast and he never found Mecca. Never heard of Mecca. There's no
Yeah,
writing. And with him, he happened to have, and he had like 11,000 men or so. Well, there was like up to 18,000 men, right? So there were over
yeah.
10,000 men, right? They went all the way from Egypt down to Yemen. Apparently, they never got there because they died from disease or whatever it was, but they
Mhm.
never got there. Just like Abraha never got to Mecca and
Yeah.
died before Mecca. His men were either attacked or they suffered from disease, were wiped out by disease. But notice he had one of the most famous historians of that era with him, a man called Strabo. Strabo
Mhm.
mentions in his writings, he mentions nothing of Mecca, Medina, nothing. So very unusual. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Romans,
Not
so
even the
somewhere,
olden Yathrib or any nothing.
as far as I know, nothing,
Wow,
which is
okay.
very unusual. They,
Yeah.
they, they chronicle the entire trip, but nothing.
Yeah.
So somewhere, and the trip took months. So somewhere in the sands near the Najran, the majority of them perished, and those who survived at this point turned back. So there's the story of these 10,000 men that went to conquer the Yemen, which at the time would have been the place of Al-Makkah, right? So about 270 AD, the Axumite Ethiopians conquered Arabia Felix and ruled it. They were Christians. They set up bishops and bishoprics. Then, by 378 AD, their rule had come to an end, and immigrants from the Hadramaut who had carried Semitic. Okay, so then you've got, the Ethiopians. They were Christians, right? Now they
Mhm.
were colonized. So Ethiopia was colonized by Yemen. Then Yemen went. Then these guys, their civilization collapsed, and then the Ethiopians went back and they colonized Yemen, and they Christianized that region, and they conquered all the way up to Mecca, basically, right? Now, they mentioned here, okay, the prototype of the modern, and it's sheikh. Okay, so within Yemeni civilization, you had already had sheikhs and you had faqis. Okay, these guys are experts in the law, right? Just like you have
Yeah.
sheikhs, right? So these guys existed in pre-Islamic Sabah. This is already a Yemeni thing, right? These are experts in the law.
Wow.
The
Interesting.
fuqaha.
Even the word sheikh and faqih, which are both
Yeah,
still in existence today for Islam, were already knocking about. Yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
these were part of pre-Islamic Sabah, right? So the inscriptions consist of the names of the gods, of which over 100 are known. Many of them are attribute names, such as Wad, love, Sadiq, truth, and Rahman, the compassionate, which passed over into Islamic
Of
terminology.
course it did.
See, they're
That
not
makes
separate gods.
They're not separate gods. Yeah. This makes so much sense because again, just go back to all the names of Allah. They are attributions more than they are names. We know that for
Yes.
sure. Then you've got sheikhs, you've got fiqhis, and this is pre-Islamic Sabah, which again, so many reference to the Queen of Sabah or the Queen of Sheba per se in the Quran as well. Direct
Yeah.
stories. it just shows you that this is all so relevant to even bog standard Islam today.
And they
Also,
thought that
yeah.
Solomon was obviously, that he had the same religion as the Queen of Sheba, so he would have been a moon worshipper. So that would.
Yeah, or was the story that Solomon changed her mind, basically?
Yeah, Trevor, look, I know you're being intelligent and smart, but for instance, if you lived here and you needed to get there, you're not going to take the ocean. You're going to go overland. That's just how that is. Now, yes, it is cheaper if you can get to the ocean, if you live close to the ocean, but there was a land route. There actually was a land route. It did exist. Now, I actually have the book, and it's Patricia Krona. Okay, there's an E on there, not Croan. Okay, Krona. Okay, ONE, right? I know about the book. I'm very familiar with that. And so tell me, what about the guy who lived here? Which sea route did he take? This guy here, what sea route did he take? It's because you see, it's cheaper to go up the sea. It's quicker up the sea. So which ocean was this guy using? This guy did here. You see him? That dude. Which sea did he take? None. He went over land because that was his option, right? So.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you've got the god of the Manaeans, who was Wad. Okay, the Katabanians had and the Hadramis had Sin. Okay, and of the Sabaeans you had Al-Makka. Notice all of them were the moon. Okay,
Damn.
another
Okay,
document,
yeah.
another scholar, another confirmation. Moon gods, right? Right. So then let's have a look. Quran 38:5 maketh Muhammad the gods one Allah. Lo, that is an astounding thing. And their leaders went about saying, leave him and cling steadfastly to your gods. Indeed, he has a hidden objective in this. We have never heard of this, even in Christianity, the latest religion. This is clearly a newly fabricated matter. That's the Quran, right?
Wow, Lloyd, it's like the proof is in the pudding, you know?
Yeah. Is Muhammad making all the gods into one Allah?
They've
Right?
literally just made that, they're making the exact same claim. He's taken all these attributes of all these different gods for the moon god and said, this is now Allah, who is the most loving, the most forgiving, the most merciful, the most exalted. All those
Yeah.
things relating back to the moon. Yeah.
Yeah. And it says now, so needless to say, this multiplication of God names does not imply an extensive polytheism. All of the names, all of the gods have been reduced to three: the sun, the moon, and the Venus star. These are respectively represented in sculpture as a disk, a crescent, and an eight-pointed star. You might remember that pagan trinity we've seen over and over.
Yes.
Each of these three had many functions and attributes, each with a name. And the reduction of these to three is only exceeded by the Islamic heaping of all attribute names on a single divinity.
Wow. This is insane. Yeah.
So although there were but three gods, each might be worshipped separately in different aspects under different names.
That's probably why as well, Lloyd, like when you're reading this, the only thing coming to my mind is like Muhammad getting rid of all of those idols and that being such a significant moment in Islam, because essentially what you're doing is taking away all of those like personal gods for those people as part of that representation and saying this now is the head of what was the pantheon is now the monotheistic version of that.
Yeah. And he's saying, stop worshipping just this one aspect of the God. Here's the whole God.
Yeah.
And he was accused of rolling them all up into one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting how they say we've never even heard of this in Christianity. And this is a whole new thing that Muhammad has spun, because Islam really clings on to dear life for being an extension of the Abrahamic faith. So Judaism, Christianity, and then Islam is meant to be the youngest of the Abrahamic faiths. But here, even in the Quran, codified, the Christians are saying, we've never heard of this being done before.
Correct. Right, correct. I see there's a debate going on. There's an argument going on in the chat with a guy called Siraj Haq. I don't know what that is. If someone can clarify, maybe I can throw in my 2 cents worth. Right, but yep. So let me continue with this. Maybe you guys can just make a little comment to say what exactly the issue is, and maybe if I can help, I will throw in my. So I've noticed, beware of Wikipedia. I've explained why to be careful of Wikipedia. It can be very helpful. It can also be extremely misleading. So the moon plays a significant role in Islam. They use a lunar Islamic calendar to determine the rate of date of Ramadan. You've got Hilal, the crescent moon, which they need to see. You have to see the crescent, Hilal, right? Which is the name of a Babylonian god.
Yeah.
Okay. And then defines the start and end of Islamic months as it did for the Babylonian calendar. So let me see, the Islamic and the Babylonian calendar had Hilal, the crescent, which defined the start and end of the month. Interesting. They took that from Babylon.
Yeah. Which again, we saw even in the way they were trying to replicate their temple, was trying to allude to what was happening in Babylon in the best way possible in their context. But yeah, Lloyd, even now, like to this day, this is all so relevant. Again, they're just discussing now, like when Saudi Arabia is is that crescent moon going to be visible from Saudi Arabia to mark the end of Ramadan? Because that's that's what's important. It doesn't matter about the other countries in the world or the other hemisphere. It's if you must see that crescent moon from Saudi Arabia today for them to signify the end of Ramadan and the onset of Eid.
Right. So these are the 12 phases of the moon, right? So this is the crescent here. You can see this crescent, right? This is the old moon, the new moon, right? This is the crescent. So you've got the full moon, you've got the different names. We've spoken about all of that. So just those are the crescents. Now the god Il or Ilah was originally a phase of the moon god.
Okay.
This is one of the phases of the moon god.
Jeez.
But in early Arabian history, the name became a general term for God, Ilah. So it's just a general term for God. It was this name that the Hebrews used prominently.
So was he the slave of the phase of the moon god?
Moon God, yeah, a phase of the moon god, like an attribute, one aspect of, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then under Muhammad's tutelage, the relatively anonymous Ilah became Allah, the God, or Allah, the supreme being. Okay.
Yeah.
According to this scholar, at least. So we know that the influence of the late classical world on the Sabaean kingdom cannot be overemphasized.
Mm-hmm.
Greeks or Byzantines must have been imported to the Sabaean state to make statues and carve stone. So now these rich Sabaeans were bringing Greek and Byzantine carpenters and masonry experts to make their statues, help build their temples. That is why Garbini and Peren would have recognized Greek influence in the crafting of the temples and mistaken it for Greek gods. Does that make sense now?
Right. That makes a hell of a lot of sense now. Yes. Okay.
Understand?
Because yeah,
So
that is that they're just seeing the replica of what they know to be from Greece. They
yes,
just don't know how it's been encapsulated in that context, and that
they brought in the craftsmen, and they think,
yeah,
oh, that's Dionysus. No, Dionysus was a god of wine,
yeah,
right? He was not the primary god, and we know that Almaka was the primary deity, the main deity, not a third level deity, right?
yeah,
Whose only focus was growing wines or whatever, right?
yeah.
And right, and in every other incarnation, Almaka is the moon god. How come under the name Almaka? None of it makes sense. Understand? So in
Mhm.
earlier periods, Egyptian and Mesopotamian influences were equally important. So it was fashion, right? The South Arabian cities were commercial metropoles of a cosmopolitan character, grafted on a simpler agricultural state in which imported goods and styles were important. Okay,
Wow.
imported
Okay.
goods and styles. Understand? So now they were importing things. They weren't
Yeah.
being Greeks. They were just bringing things over from there.
Yeah, exactly. And it also goes to show how much they were not a closed off society. Do you know what I mean? By any standards. I'm just trying to see what the situation is with Siraj, but he has made a comment. But Trevor Griffiths is just following up with this on your comment about the trade routes.
Yeah, Trevor, I probably know far, far, far more than you about this. Okay, so really understand. You're preaching to the choir. Next, you'll tell me that water is wet, the sky is blue, and 1 + 1 is equal to 2. Okay, if you listen to what Jay Smith says, it is 50 times cheaper to go via sea than over land. And also, there's a massive escarpment which goes from the Arabian plain down into Mecca, which is very difficult to go upwards with laden camels or laden donkeys or laden horses, etc. I'm well aware of all of this. I'm very, very well aware. I am familiar with that. However, I said a land route exists. A land route existed. Land routes did exist. Not everyone had boats. So a land route existed. And yes, we know there was also a sea route. Okay. I can drive to the store. I can also walk to the store. Okay. That doesn't mean if I walk to the store that cars don't exist. If I have a car and I can drive to the shop, it doesn't mean that I can't walk to the store, that walking is a myth. Please get this, right? Moving on. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So, yeah, okay. Now, the imamate of Yemen.
It's all good in the hood.
Yes, I know. You're being pedantic, though. Right, so the imamate of Yemen. Now I want to talk about the old is the new, right? So this is this document discusses Yemen today versus Yemen of 2,000 years ago, right? The imamate of Yemen, a modern priestly kingdom. The transition from moon, sun, and Venus worship to Islam, and from Sabaean speech and writing to Arabic, was not as drastic and complete a change as the Yemenites themselves may imagine. Although the trade upon which, okay, so now they're telling us that this transition to Islam was not a drastic change, right? The change from Sabaean language to Arabic was not a drastic change.
Yeah.
The cultural shift was not a drastic shift. Let's see. The Imam, who is the successor of a long line of holy ancestors, calls himself by the title Amir al-Mu'minin, the commander of the faithful, which is equivalent to caliph. Now, he doesn't say that. No, remember, the Mu'minin is the believers. It's not the Muslims, right? This is that ecumenical title, which included apparently Jews and Christians, right? So,
and even today, Lloyd, when we talk about, sorry, just to interrupt you there, but when we talk about like Aisha or any of Muhammad's wives, we're meant to say al-Mu'minin, like that's still in use today, which is the mother of the believers.
Yeah, and the believers would seem to be an ecumenical movement consisting of Jews, Christians, and Muslims who all believed in monotheism. And then later on, it looks like the 9th century that Islam split off as an individual separate identity.
Yes.
So it took a long time because of heresy and Gnosticism, it looks like there was confusion over what is real Christianity, right? There was so much infighting, so much of what is orthodoxy and what is Gnostic and what is heresy. And this confusion, the Muslims said, look, we can't deal with this, and split off.
Right.
Okay, so now the modern Yemenite system may without difficulty be shown to parallel the social organization of the Sabaeans.
Wow. Right? Okay. Yeah.
So you would not expect it to be identical, for the modern Yemen is the composite remnant of several earlier states adapted by a shift in religion and by northern influences. But the connection to the past, according to this, is very clear. According to this document, at least, according to this discussion, it is not such a difficult change. Now, borrowed sin. So sin symbol. So we should be finishing. Let me double check.
Sure.
Yeah, we won't have too long to go. Let me see while I'm here. Oopsie. I'm just going to drop this here so I can see where we are. We've got about, 10 more slides or so. So to wrap up some final points. So sin symbol was the crescent moon. Given the amount of artifacts concerning the worship of this moon god, it's clear that this was the dominant religion in Sumeria. The cult of the moon god was the most popular religion throughout Mesopotamia. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, and the Akkadians took the word Sven and transformed it into the word Shin as their favorite name for this deity. Right? Shin was a name essentially Sumerian, Babylonian in origin, which had been borrowed by the Semites. So the Semites, of course, the Yemenis, the Arabians, and they borrowed this Mesopotamian deity.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Josie. So Muhammad, the Sabi, we've spoken about some of this. It was said that the Sabians of Haran, that they used to make a yearly pilgrimage to the pyramids of Egypt. So the Sabians of Haran, oddly enough, okay, so this is in Turkey. So Maimonides said that the Sabians are remnants of the ancient Egyptian priests and the Hierophants. Remember, he is also the guy that said that Abraham was a Sabaean from Yemen.
Yeah.
Okay, they worshiped the moon god, Al-Makka, right? They practiced hieroglyphic magic, a system of language encoding that can engineer consciousness. Remember when I showed that the Quran is based on the Arabic language and the Quran is based on the magic inherent in the letters and the words? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. That was insanely shocking to hear, that the actual makeup of the Arabic words that the Quran uses is also very deliberate and has a precise magical meaning behind it in the way it's put together. And also that the Quran as a whole could potentially be seen as like a series of incantations or summonings in certain ways.
Yeah, ilm al-huruf, onomatomancy, a magical practice. So this is the harf, the akhruf. Remember the akhruf and the kira'at. It's onomatomancy. It's like gematria, a magical practice based on the occult properties of the letters of the alphabet and of the divine and angelic names which they form. Volume 3, 595. Let's go have a look at Volume 3, see if I have it here. Shall I bring up Volume 3 just so that we can confirm the reference?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always down to see anything that has a slightly occultish aspect that Islam.
We should do that show. We should do that show on the occult aspects of Islam.
We most definitely should. Yeah, that is so fascinating. Also, it's just because you're slowly like shattering a lot where everything that Islam claims to be against, I did not even know the levels of like, so because again, when I thought of God, I just thought, well, the God of Islam is way too violent. Surely, like divinity and violence do not go hand in hand like this. There is no way. But then also the fact that like doing witchcraft or sorcery or these occultish behaviors seems so far removed from monotheism, and then you slap it into Islam, into the very backbone of the Quran. It's wild.
It's very much integral. It's very much integral. I should have just gone to page 7, whatever it was. Now I'm searching. For some reason, the search is a little slow on this document.
Okay, no worries.
It'll take a moment. So hopefully. Okay, here we go. Ahruf, okay, the idea of the ahruf and the kira'at. Now, yes, it means word. Yes, it means letter. Yes, it means dialect. It means all of those things. That is true. This is the main meaning, the science of the ahruf, okay? Huruf is just plural of ahruf, the science of letters, onomatomancy. It's a magical practice, okay? It's been given the name Samia, usually reserved for white magic. That means it could also mean black magic.
Yeah.
And it's occult properties of the letters of the alphabet. Remember we spoke last week of the Bismillah is an incantation, which is white and black magic.
Yes, and we saw the incorporation of sihr that could interchangeably be black magic and white magic at the same time.
Yes. And it is based on alchemy, and the 28 letters of the Arabic alphabet have 4 categories of 7 letters with the 4 basic elements: air, fire, water, and earth. And you also have lunar letters and solar letters.
This is crazy. And Lloyd, just so you can repeat to the audience, what is the source that we're reading right now?
We are reading Wikipedia. I wrote this all myself.
Look at this, guys. That's what we're reading.
I made this up myself, according to my critics. This is the Encyclopedia of Islam. Okay.
Thank you,
this
Lloyd,
would be volume 3. Yeah. Also, by the way, I don't know what happened, but my Google archive has been deleted. So
what?
I was paying for storage. I don't know what happened. But I have, luckily I've got 5 backups.
So, you legend, Lloyd.
Yeah, I have 5 backups. No, I keep a lot of backups. So I have I have 2 other sources online right now. So that's okay. I will drop one in the comments. I'll drop one in the chat if you can link it afterwards, because my Google archive is gone. I'll have to set up a new one. It won't take me long. I just have to copy it over, because I keep 5 separate archives simultaneously, online and offline.
No, I most definitely will do that. I hope it's just a storage issue and nothing.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but something went wrong the last couple of days, and I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, so this is the Encyclopedia of Islam, Volume 3, right? Remember, if you look to buy a copy, it's about $40,000, right? So, okay. So now notice that Maimonides, this is one of the most famous of the Jewish scholars. He says that the Sabians are remnants of the ancient Egyptian priests. Now, these guys are in Haran. So the Muslims conquered Haran, and they took that magic over, and they took it with them to Spain. Right?
Okay, yeah.
So they took it with them to Spain, and that's where a lot of the Egyptian magic now enters into Islam as part of the scholars of their private knowledge, right? But he says they have hieroglyphic magic, a system of language and coding that can engineer consciousness, and that's exactly what we're seeing within the Arabic language of the Quran. Language and coding to engineer consciousness.
Yeah, precisely that. It's just, I'm just trying to think at the same time, because I'm just trying to look at all of this holistically now, everything we've learned so far. I'm just seeing that I can really see the way they've adopted the concept of like the Malik, or like this whole religion where the worship was based on a war god, and then you take on those traits. But so they've got that going on. They've got like the amalgamation to worship the moon god, but to make it a monotheistic like facade. But then at the same time, they're so heavily into the esoteric. So
Because remember, I mentioned that the split, right?
yeah,
So regular Muslims have to just follow the rules, and the imams have to enforce the rules of the Sharia. On the
yeah,
other side of the divide is the esoteric, and that's purely for the senior scholars, for them
right.
to commune with Allah, for them to
Wow.
basically they want to become. Okay, so the term is so Muhammad was insan al kamil, which translates as insane as a camel.
Lloyd.
Okay,
I will never
so
forget that now. Perfect man. Yeah.
so it's the perfect man. Okay, you could think of it as possibly the perfected man. Uh,
Sure.
okay, and you'll notice the very same concept is actually present within both communism and within Nazism. Okay,
Jeez.
the perfect
Okay.
man, the very same. So within Nazism, you had the Übermensch. Okay, so in Nazism, you
Mm,
had the Übermensch, right?
hmm.
The Superman, the Overman, the Ultimate Man, the Supreme Man, the Perfected Man as well. The same concept. The same concept
Right.
was present in communism as well, believe it or not, right? So in fact, in 1919, Hitler was a communist, and obviously National Socialism, Nazi means
Mm,
Nationalsozialisten, right? National
hmm.
Socialists, as opposed to international socialists. And in fact, there was the Nazis originally put out lots of propaganda that stated that they are very much in alignment with Karl Marx, but they had to withdraw all of that propaganda because the communists were not popular in Germany, so they had to hide that aspect of their allegiance, the fact that they were socialists. They called right-leaning, but no, their politics is entirely left-leaning. But
Mm.
that's it, the same concept of the perfected man. Now, this idea, this idea Hitler received from a Sufi, right? There's a major Sufi influence on Hitler who inspired him to do a number of things. So Hitler got a lot of his ideas, oddly enough, from a Sufi Muslim, right,
Yeah.
who lived with him, right, who was a very close friend of his and a very strong influence on him. So they want to become the insan al kamil. They want to become perfected as well, right?
So, Lloyd, just a question, and forgive my ignorance for if this is a really basic question, but when we see Sufi communities around the world, obviously they vary as well. Like if I take like African Sufis versus Tunisian versus like Turkish Sufis, who are on face value they are following more of like I don't know, Maulana Rumi's teachings, and they're more into like the whirling dervish aspect. Um, and then like Sufis in Iran have their own thing going on. Every Sufi community is like different in their practices, and I know that the overreaching practice they have like forms of like dhikr and stuff where you're constantly in the remembrance of God, and they're trying to harness like a
Mm-hmm.
point of what would you call it, like a trance-like state almost, to feel that communion with God. Is that's my experience with Sufism like that. But when you talk to me and you say the word Sufi, what you're referring to is actually something also way beyond that. Or is it safe to assume that even these lay Sufis know that what branch or like which aspects of Islam they know so well compared to other Muslims who don't indulge in that, if that makes sense?
Okay, so I wish the answer was easy, but let me try. So first of all, insan al kamil in mysticism, the concept of the
Mm,
perfect man. All right, so you've got
right.
that there, and there's a long
Hmm.
story attached to that. Now, there are Sufis and there are Sufis, just like there are. So the Sufi texts, the Sharia text, the Islamic legal texts, have a lot to say about fake Sufis, but bad Sufis, who
Okay.
so first of all, a Sufi is completely beholden to the Sharia. He must be 100% Sharia compliant to the law, to the fiqh. He must be
Right.
completely compliant. Only then, once he's completely compliant, then he has the right to engage in the deeper esoteric occult aspects of Islam. But he has to be perfect in both, right? He has to
Okay.
walk both paths accurately. The lay Muslim only has access to the lower levels of the Sharia, following the law, the
Hmm.
fiqh, right? Now, to become a Sufi, you have to be selected. Now, look, you can become a Sufi, but you might be an initiate, a low-level Sufi. There's like 9 levels of Sufism. So you might be an idiot Sufi, a completely ignorant Sufi. Your teacher might realize you're not the right material, so he doesn't initiate you into the higher levels.
Which is why, sorry, that makes sense, because Sufism puts such an emphasis on having, I think it's called, like in Pakistan, we say a murshid or a peer, which is a teacher, like that spiritual guide. And they are the ones who kind of like hold your hand and work you into the fold, I guess, if you're
now you can read about even the peer.
Yeah.
Now references to the peer even appear in the tafsir, but yes, you're gonna have that. So you see, there has to be lineage. You see, you have to. This is why everybody wants to be a Sayyid, because you see, Muhammad had a direct link to God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And God's power flowed through him. And if you were linked to Muhammad, then that power flows into you. And then if someone is linked to that descendant, that power flows into them. There's an unbroken lineage. That's why this isnad is so important, because it's an unbroken lineage of holy power flowing through these people. And the mystics are the ones who can tap into this. And you can link yourself to that scholar, and then you can enter into the throne room of Allah. You can enter into Allah's presence, and his presence will fill you, and you become perfected. You become the perfect, powerful, ultimate Übermensch.
Wow, this is blowing my mind, because when I did the basic dive into Sufism, because I thought it was a lot more of the low-level idiot Sufi stuff that you were talking about, there was the whole concept is the union with God, and I'd always like try and be like, oh, this is their version of like nirvana or enlightenment, so to speak. But yeah, that makes sense that your aim, they always say like our desire is almost it's like some people describe it as a marriage with God or as a union with God, but that is the ultimate aim, is to become the perfect man through
Yes.
that. Okay, jeez.
Yes, you're becoming the perfect, you're becoming like a god.
I see.
You're becoming fully enlightened. You're becoming enlightened. You see, you become one of, and I'm going to say this very carefully, you become one of the Illuminati. Okay?
Yeah.
And I say this very carefully. This is the greatest scholar in Islam after Muhammad himself, even greater than the four Imams. This is Al-Ghazali. Okay?
Oh,
this
yes,
is the
okay. Look what he wrote, Lloyd.
The Alchemy of Happiness. Yes. Because now I'm going to show this, and I'm going to be very careful in how I describe this. But understand, those who stopped short of complete illumination, okay? So there are those who believe they are illuminated, but they're not illuminated. He says, Muhammad Ghazali says, identified Al-Mutta with Allah. Al-Mutta is Muhammad, the prime principle of the universe.
Wow,
They identified Muhammad with Allah, okay, blah, 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 okay? But he says this knowledge of the Amr, this knowledge of the command, of the word of command, of the word of power of Allah, contains much that is obscure and too difficult for most minds, unless you're one of us really smart scholars.
Yeah,
Sufi, right?
You're tapping into the right stuff, yeah.
And then Ghazali says that the perfect Illuminati, okay, those being the Sufis. The Sufis are the perfect Illuminati.
Because they are, i.e., the illuminated ones in this sense, yeah.
They're illuminated by the power, by the light of Allah. They carry Allah's illumination, that halo of illumination, that power, right? So because you see, all of the holiness, like when you look at the halos of Jesus and you look at the halos in the paintings of all the prophets and of all the apostles, that power was given to them. That's the Holy Spirit, right? Which they got from Jesus, basically. But Jesus now gets it from God, and then he passes it down. And if you look at the paintings of Muhammad, his entire body is engulfed in a halo of fire. And you see, he then passes this fire down, this holiness, this light, this illumination. So the Sufis are the perfect Illuminati, and they perceive that Al-Mutta, the obeyed one, that's Muhammad, is not more than Allah, okay? But Muhammad is related to Allah as the sun is to the essential light. So Muhammad is part of Allah. This is shirk.
Jeez, that is pure shirk. Yes.
Understand?
I mean, so, to the average Muslim, this sounds like complete shirk.
Yeah. So understand. So if you go further into this gets really weird. But basically,
and I imagine, sorry, Lloyd, if Allah's the
sure.
moon god, as we know in theory from this whole thing, and Muhammad is essential to him as the sun is to light, like he could essentially be like almost like the consort of Allah at this point. That's how the level of shirk this is going to.
He's the vice regent. He's the viceroy.
Vice
He's the
regent,
emissary of Allah.
precisely. Yes. Anyway, sorry, you were saying something very important.
Because you see, Allah is now. Look, I know someone's going to. I read the Quran, and the Quran says, "I don't care. I really don't care. I absolutely, positively do not care what the Quran says most of the time." See, Allah is aloof. Allah is not in creation. Allah can't even come into His creation.
Yeah.
Right. But look, the Quran says a lot of things. Okay, and Muslims will tell you the Quran says don't beat your wife. Yes, it does. Okay, so if they say, but Allah can't come, yeah, I don't care. No, He doesn't. Okay, so Islam's a religion of peace. No, it's not. Quran says a lot of things that I don't believe. So Allah is aloof, right? So what they mean is the primum mobile. Okay, because He moves the primum mobile. See, they identified al-Mutta with Allah because He moves the primum mobile and all things. Now, remember, the planets turn in their orbits, right? The planets spin in their orbits. The Earth turns on its axis, right? Atoms move in our bodies. The ocean moves because of the moon's influence, right? All movement, okay, is because of the primum mobile. This is the power that exudes from Allah. But Allah is missing. Where is Allah? Nobody knows. Allah is aloof. So, because Allah is missing in action, gone AWOL, who has to stand in Allah's place and move the universe, make the sun rise, make the moon rise? Muhammad. Do you understand what this is saying?
Yeah. Okay, for sure. So effectively, Muhammad is the one orchestrating all of this.
Yes.
From what we understand here, not Allah himself. Yeah, the spirit of Muhammad, which is essentially part and parcel of the extension of Allah's holy divine
So the
divinity.
Sufi want to tap into this power to be perfected like Muhammad. See, so Muhammad is Jesus, basically. He's the God.
Yeah. Okay, this is mad. But if I do think again, this could be such an ignorant question, so I'm sorry. But like when you talk about the fact that the Sufis had to be like follow the Sharia to the letter, you were saying like down to the last T. But then if you look at some of the methods that they probably use to reach this state of like union or this desired state, then a lot of those look to the average Muslim again as being very un-Islamic and something that Sharia would not permit. So I'm guessing that's just all kind of passed over with the methods that occultism or your beer
so look,
or
there are
your
bad
worship.
Sufis and there are proper Sufis. The Sharia takes aim at bad Sufis a lot. They have a lot to say about bad Sufis, about wannabe Sufis, pretend Sufis, half Sufis, fake Sufis. There's a lot of they rail against that kind of bad Sufism. Okay. So you first so yeah, a Sufi has to perfect himself in the Sharia as well as perfect himself in the spiritual aspects or the esoteric occult aspects of Islam. Right.
That's really interesting as well, Lloyd, because of
just last thing, the physical practice, like the spinning, makes you see. Okay, short version. I'll try and be very brief. Keep your thought warm. So your mind is rational. Okay, remember Allah. Islam is Gnostic. We've covered that before. Okay, the world is cursed according to Islamic theology. The world is cursed. The world of matter is cursed, just like the Gnostics believe. Your mind is a product of the material body. Therefore, it is not something that can be trusted because the world is cursed. So therefore, you have to escape your rational mind. You have to move into what they call the pre-rational and the post-rational mind, right? Outside of the pre-rational and the post-rational. So what you want to do is you want to use incantations. Remember 20% of the Quran is supposed to be gibberish letters. All these gibberish letters, these gibberish phrases that mean nothing.
Yasin, for example.
Well, no, but those are just no one knows what it means. But remember, there's a portion of every verse. They say like 20% of like the chapters, the beginnings, are like no one knows what those words and phrases mean. You see?
Yeah.
Because if you were to read, I am perfectly rational, I am trapped in my mind, that's not going to help you reach nirvana. It's not going to help you escape your mind. So it's like counting sheep. It helps you to escape your rational mind and fall asleep, right?
Oh, maybe that's what the Alif Lam Mim is.
You chant those nonsense gibberish words to break out of your rational mind, to enter into the world of gibberish, which is post-rational.
Okay, it's like having your own mantra to get into, tap into that
These are mantras
state.
to escape into the pre-rational and post-rational states. And once you are freed from these chains of the rational, you can then begin to, in other words, once you've entered into, you can now enter into the realm with Allah.
Oh my days. Lloyd, you have just destroyed Sufism. And that one was for you, Josie Wales, because I know you like it when that is said in response to Lloyd's comments. You were asking for one, so there you go. And Lloyd, just real quick before I forget my thought as well, I just wanted to say that makes sense when I found out about Sufism, the darkness behind it, nothing on the level that you've explained to me today. So I'd love to pick your brain on this further for sure. This can be a whole segment in itself. But when I thought, oh, these are the peaceful, loving, like whirling, just remembering God and meditation and getting out of your head for a while and all that good stuff kind of thing, I realized that they are also the first ones to rally up troops for jihad in a state where Islam calls for war. The Sufis are the ones who would rally up and be the first ones to give themselves over to fight in jihad. So that, to me, again, I could not put those. I was like, these really peaceful, esoteric, mystical people who are like, God is love and love is God. And they turn to people like Rumi, who says, come, whoever you are, fire worshipper, Jew, Christian, Zoroastrian, everyone is welcome in this caravan of love. And yet these same people are the ones who are rallying up to go and fight against the Kafir in infidel lands. I couldn't put those things together. But yeah, real quick as well, just catch up on super chats. Thank you so much, Shiv. You are such an ardent supporter. You're always here or on Sunday Scoop, and you're always super chatting. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, and I really hope you're enjoying this series. And another regular as well, Norse mythology. I saw you just entered recently, so yeah, you have not. Well, you've missed quite a chunk, but it's all there for you to rewatch. I hope you're enjoying this, and thank you so much for your support as always. It does mean the world. Derek in the house again. Thank you so much, Derek. I swear, I think you were live as well now. I was gonna check yours out after we finished up here, but thank you so much. Derek is saying, I'm extremely proud of Nuria and Lloyd. Keep up the great work, my friends. Nuria makes it look good to be ex-Muslim. Whew, well, you know what? I've never felt better, Lloyd, and Derek, to be ex-Muslim. And after these chats with Lloyd, I assure you, the Quran and the Hadith were bad, but this is a whole nother level of bad. And I'm so happy I'm on this end of things, like looking into Islam, because, oh my God, I can't even imagine what my brain would be going through to try and make sense of what Lloyd has shown us. But thank you so much, Derek. You are such a support and you're always here to show your love. I really appreciate it. And Shiv, once again, thank you so much. You're so generous. You're literally constantly supporting. And thank you. And I know you said you prefer super chats to anything else, so I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you're here all the time. And Norse, thank you so much again. I really, really do appreciate it. And guys, girls, do let us know what you think of this in the comments, as we said, or even now in the live chat. And we will keep some time now for you guys to ask any questions. Just as we wrap it up, but I'm going to let Lloyd kind of take us on the end of this journey.
So let me wrap it up. So hopefully, because I know this has been a bit of a, thanks Norse mythology. Yeah, look, guys, I appreciate the questions, the input, the support, and Nuria, your questions, your engagement, fantastic. Myth Vision, thank you for your comments and questions and so on. Always enlightening, always stimulating. Giving us something to think about.
Illuminating, Lloyd.
Yeah, so I should do that talk on the occult aspects of Islam and introduce that and the connections to some crazy ideologies. Islam is always somehow the hidden hand in a lot of things. And so, okay, so Muhammad was a Sabi. Now, the Sabians, okay, so the Sabians are like a Gnostic sect, right? The Sabians are Gnostic. They hate Jesus. They called Mandeans today. They revere John the Baptist. They think Jesus was like the Antichrist. And so obviously these guys must have had some sort of effect on Islam. Now, Muhammad, oddly enough, is called a Sabi in the Hadith, okay? this is Da'if Bukhari, volume 1, book 7, hadith 340. She said, do you mean the man who is called the Sabi? Yep, Da'if Bukhari. To Allah's messenger, the man who is called the Sabi. Okay, with the new religion. They replied, yes, the same person. They brought her to the Prophet. A strange thing happened. 2 men met me and took me to the man who is called the Sabi. Now, the Sabi, again, they hate Jesus. Okay, they hate Christianity. They revere John the Baptist. And they practiced hieroglyphic magic. Just, just why is he called a Sabi?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Understand, this is an odd connection. And of course,
it is an odd connection.
And in Haran, they practice Hermeticism, right? So Thoth of ancient Egypt was a moon deity, okay, and Thoth is Hermes Trismegistus, the father of Gnosticism. And in Haran, they had that occult temple. The occult. Remember Nabonidus in the beginning? I started. His mother ran that temple.
Yeah.
To Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus. So understand this explains the Gnostic link into Islam.
That very much does. And can we also, is it safe to assume that this that the hierophants, this hieroglyphic magic that was practiced, then followed through, and that's what we see when we.
So the Sufis claim that they are the inheritors of the Egyptian sacred schools.
Right.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
They claim to be
right,
original
Lloyd, we
inheritors.
have to do it. We have to do a stream on Sufism. There is too much there, and from what you're saying, the role it plays in Islam, like the actual deep, real, true Islam, it's so integral.
Yeah. So the Sabis, according to this, right, are people of the scripture who recite the Book of Psalms. They're not Orthodox Christians by any means, but they were pseudo Christians. They were heretics, right? They are Gnostics, so they kind of fake. I mean, obviously, from a Christian perspective, they would be fake Christians, heretics. But so understand, now you've got this confused Christianity, and Muslims are taking like what the hell's going on? Are these guys the real ones? Are these heretics the real ones? Are those heretics the real ones? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? Understand? Massive confusion. Right? The Quran provides the Sabaeans, like these are the Yemeni Sabaeans, with a religious status comparable that of the Jews and Christians. The problem is the Quran is not very clear, because sometimes it says the Sabi, and other times it's the Saba'iyun. The Saba'iyun are the Sabaeans, and then you've got the Sabi. Which group do they mean? We don't know. It's not clear.
Yeah.
So now you've got this confusion. Understand? So they might have lumped them all into one. Who knows? But there is confusion. But now the Quran, now the Sabaeans were the moon worshippers, Al-Makkah's worshippers, and the Sabis, the Sabians, were these Gnostic, these Gnostic Hermetics who produced magic.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the very first things as well that I brought up with you, and I was saying which one's that referring to, right? Because they do equate them to Jews and Christians, but yeah, you're right. Who knows?
So there's this confusion. Okay, so Allah, the moon god. So Allah is never defined in the Quran. Why did Muhammad assume that the pagan Arabs already knew who Allah was? His father was called Abdullah.
Precisely, yeah.
Because Muhammad was raised in the religion of the moon god, Allah, but he went one step further. They believed in Allah, the moon god, being the greatest of all gods and the supreme deity in a pantheon. Muhammad decided that Allah was not only the greatest God, but the only God. He said, you already believe that the moon god Allah is the greatest. Just accept the idea that he's the only God. I'm not taking away Allah. I'm only taking away his wife and daughters and all the other gods, and I'm just lumping them all into one God. Bang, there you go.
That's probably why he slipped up, just when the satanic verses came in and Satan came and said, all the waswasa into Muhammad's mind, where he said he actually slipped up and exactly, and re-mentioned the daughters of Allah. And then obviously had to take that back. But again, we saw that was probably happening in a state of trying to appease those pagans at the time by allowing that level of shirk. And then he realized, oh my God, no, I've taken away all of these and unified this God. What am I doing here? That was Satan. But that's.
But remember also, it was the demon or the jinn, the Lord of Monday, that whispered into his ear.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, we discussed that before. So hold on. Okay, yeah, it was the Lord of Monday.
Somebody made an amazing comment on one of our...
Al-Abyad, the Lord of Monday. This is the guy that cast the words, the satanic verses upon him.
Oh, okay. Oh my
gosh. The Lord of
I
Monday and the moon.
Oh, flipping heck. Okay. That was a deeper blunder than I even imagined then.
Yeah, the White King, Malik al-Abyad, is the Lord of Monday. The moon, Qamar, the white one, Al-Malik. Remember, Al-Makka is the white one, the shining white one, the
Yes,
bright white one.
correct.
Father of the light. Al-Makka, the light.
Yeah. And the
So
jinn
you see
commandment.
these overlaps. The
Yeah.
white king, the white, the bright white. That's Al-Makka. So it's a really odd overlap. All these parallels with Al-Makka here as well. Just.
Do you think Muhammad's constant wanting to be affirmed as like the whitest of the white as well, and not be considered anything to do with black, also comes from the association of wanting to emulate like this?
I would think that makes perfect sense. Remember, Muhammad was so white. His shin was white.
Exactly.
His chest was white. His arms were white. His face
Yeah.
was white. His belly was white. Because Al-Makka means the white. He was
Exactly.
like Allah.
Yeah. To the point where
Al-Makka's the
calling him
bright
anything
white.
but that is punishable. Calling him black is extremely punishable. So there is this inherent need and obsession. And
Yeah.
racism, let's not forget. But yes.
Because the primary god was Al-Makka, the white, right? So therefore Muhammad, now he's associated with that. Yeah. He's like the essential light, like the sun is to the essential light. So yeah, or whatever. He's associated with the light. That's
Yeah.
Muhammad. The
True.
Nur, right? He has the Nur Muhammadi, the moonlight of Muhammad, and he's serving the moon god. I mean, so notice the Sumerians had a lunar calendar with 360 days, and the moon god referred to as a bull, right? The horns of the bull. And the crescent, now in their latitude, the crescent, instead of being horizontal like or vertical like this, becomes horizontal.
Yeah.
Right. That's why they have the bull. Now, so Charles Russell Coulter and Patricia Turner consider that Allah's name may be derived from a pre-Islamic god called Ilya, similar to El, Ilah, and Jehovah. They considered some of his characteristics based on lunar deities like Al-Makka. They also call Al-Makka a lunar deity. Qal, Ka'el, right? Shakir, Wad, to love, to agree, and Warak. Okay? Warak ibn Nawfal, same dude, same name.
Yeah, that's literally
Right?
sprung to mind. Yeah.
So now notice they speak an exceptional representation of some South Arabian gods was found on low reliefs decorating the pillars of a temple in Wadi al-Juf in Yemen. That a masculine figure of Wad is represented standing, armed with arch and quiver, wearing a short skirt and horned headgear. Now notice, remember, if you look at, okay, so Wad meaning love, okay, masculine figure, arch and quiver. So think about it. In the Bible, you have Isaac and you have Ishmael. Ishmael, according to the Bible, okay, first of all, you've got Dul Karnain, two horned ones. Okay, the god Wad happens to be Al-Makka. It's a manifestation of Al-Makka. It's one of the aspects of Al-Makka. But Ishmael, remember, becomes a bowman. Ishmael, in the Bible, wields a bow. I just thought it's a very odd connotation that this
True.
is.
Yeah.
So
it
Ishmael,
is.
right? So according to the biblical narrative, Ishmael wields a bow, and now you've got Wad, right, who's so important as well, who's now linked to having a bow, just like Ishmael. So in pre-Islamic Arabia, including in Mecca, Allah was considered a deity, creator, or supreme deity in a polytheistic pantheon. Allah, from Arabic al-Illah, meaning the God, was a title. So Wellhausen states Allah was known from Jewish and Christian sources and was known to pagan Arabs. So it was also used by the Christians, but of course Allah was the God Yahweh. So there's a difference.
Yes.
And the
for
worship
the
of sacred,
Christians, right? But then it was actually just the title of God for the most part, for the pagans especially. Yeah.
Yeah, the God Yahweh, but for Muslims it became eventually the name.
Then exactly, yeah. So Muhammad actually took the title of the God and made it the name of the God himself.
Yes, correct. I think he wanted a nameless God because you needed to disassociate it from all the other gods. You couldn't, because all the other names were known names of pagan deities. He had to separate that, I think. So
that's
the
why he
worship of
probably
sacred,
slapped them on, as attributes, afterwards.
Yeah, to identify so that, because remember, Islam tries to be everything to everybody. We love Jesus too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's why you probably get Rahman, Rahim, all these things still falling into
familiar
place.
to people.
Yes.
Yeah. He's love. Well, he's Wad as well. He's your God too.
Yeah. Also the exalted one, as we saw earlier, they like that title. He added that in.
Yeah, marketing expert. He was fantastic at PR. Right?
He really was.
So worship of sacred stones was one of the most important practices of the Arabs. Cult images of a deity were most often an unworked stone block. The most common name for these stone blocks was derived from the Semitic nasib, to be stood upright, but other names are used, okay, such as Nabateen, Masgida, place of prostration, and Arabic duar, object of circumambulation. So the Arabs used to circumambulate and used to prostrate, okay? It's a common term in pre-Islamic poetry, right? So
Yeah.
now, what does this have to do with Ishmael? Just briefly, Ishmael worshipped idols. Sarah did not want Isaac adopting these habits. He violated married women, just like Mo did.
Yeah.
Okay. He tried to kill Isaac with his bow and arrow, and he tried to make it look like an accident. Okay. So now, not all of this is necessarily in the Bible. Some of it's in the Talmud. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, you don't have to believe the Talmud, but just understand that it's in the Talmud. There's a record of it, and someone believes it. Right?
Yeah.
So now, God apparently cut short Abraham's life by 5 years so that he would not live to see Ishmael violate a betrothed woman, commit murder, deny God, deny the resurrection of the dead, and despise the birthright of Isaac. Notice this is very similar to what Islam does. Right?
Yeah.
Legalized
Yeah.
jihad, denying the God of the Bible, denying the resurrection of Jesus, and so on and so on. Okay, so an angel told Hagar before Ishmael was born that he would be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against every man. And remember, Abraham teaches them to hate in the doctrine of al-Walla al-Bara, that they must hate all Christians and Jews, right? Every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of his brethren, right? And he became an expert archer. God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. I just thought maybe that has something to do with Wad. There's a certain parallel there between Islam and the pagan god Wad. Okay, so even in the inscription invoking the sole god Rahmanan, they have the formula Wad is father.
Wow,
now you've got
okay.
Rahman, back to the Christian god Rahman, right, which is also stolen by a whole bunch of people. But what is a father? God the Father, God the Son. It's just kind of odd that you've got this.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's very
and the
odd.
cult of
You're right.
Wad was in the Sabaean territories. Okay, and so yeah, and you've got temples of Wad that are in Arabia today. Qaryat al-Fal still exists, the city, which was the main city of the Kinda, the kingdom of Kinda. Okay, so just wanted to just and then you've also got, notice they also mentioned Hiran. Remember we mentioned Hiran, which is where Makaraba was, which is where they calculated that Mecca was, according to the Ptolemy's map. Makaraba, which they claim is Mecca, turns out to be Haran, the watercourse of Wad. Now Hiran was Al-Makkah of Iran. We discussed already the inscriptions to Al-Makkah of Hiran. Now you've got Hiran, which is also the watercourse of Wad. And the symbol of the god is a snake. And you've got, on the coin of Al-Makkah, you have this little snake shape, which is also symbolic of Al-Makkah. So, I don't know, just a couple of things to think about.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
Right,
Do
so
you feel
let me
like,
see.
do you feel like Islam carried on any of that kind of serpent symbolism? Because I haven't come across anything in the book.
Yes, in theory. Hold on. Actually, possibly. So look, any one of these things can be explored further. I just don't have time to obviously go down every rabbit hole. But black. Okay, let's have a look.
I really appreciate when you do go off this tangent. You don't have to entertain all of my questions, Lloyd. I've just.
No, I try to. I mean, it's interesting. It gives me something to think about. But let's look at the black flag of ISIS. No. So let's look at. Let me see if I can find. Man, I'm suddenly trying. Here we go. Okay, so this is not the clearest. I know where to find it. If you will give me one.
Yeah, sure.
No. Okay, look, no, here it is. Okay, this is not the very best example to use, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh my God, is it in the M for Muhammad, like the serp? Okay, what is it?
Notice here, you see this sign here, this symbol here. This is the serpent. According to some, at least. According to some, this is the serpent. This is not the best image, unfortunately, but this is the snake.
Okay, so if that's how they would have incorporated, like that's a potential way they could have incorporated.
You'll see it here.
Right?
I mean, you'll see it here again. This is the snake here, the snake symbol. It's in. Well, what is this symbol now again? I can't remember. Just remind me.
That's actually Allah.
Yeah. So hold on. Name of Allah, Arabic. Just shows how much I know.
Do you know?
Here we go. That's what I wanted. Here we go. Okay, let's just take this one. Oh, bugger, what
Norse
have I
is
just
asking,
done?
is that Arabic writing? Yes, it is indeed. Norse, it
Yeah.
is. This is the standardized way that the Islamic Shahada, so like the I
Oh,
bear witness, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God, is written.
so here's the snake and here's the head of the snake. Just imagine the tail of the snake and here's the head of the snake.
My God, how can I unsee that now, Lloyd? Shoot. Yeah, it could be for sure.
You understand the symbolism? At least that's what some people claim.
Yeah, I can
And
see how they
so,
would claim that in terms of symbolism for sure. I mean, literally, because I asked you just to put the question out there, thinking it'd be a long
yeah,
shot, but that's a very that could be for
yeah.
sure plausible.
So for some, this is the idea of the symbolism of the snake. Now look at this over here. Does that look like
That's like
snake
the
skin to you?
oh my gosh, yes, but oh God, yes, it does. The scaly snakeskin for sure. But also, I was
You
thinking
want to?
again, like that same pattern of almost like the sun emblem that Muhammad is written in on
Yeah,
the Kaaba as well. It looks very similar to that.
yeah. So yeah, let me wind up with the slides, and then I know we've taken a lot of questions and deviations, and I sword and snake. Well, yeah,
Someone said it looks like a trident.
it kind of does too, doesn't it? Yeah.
Mhm.
So now you've got, notice this 9,000-year-old shrine in Jordan, right? So there's lots of Neolithic temples all over the place. This is what these, I've shown this before. Okay, this is Jordan,
Yeah.
right? And this is not that far from Petra. Petra's just here. It's not that far from Petra. And you can see this is what a graven idol looks like. And remember, Islam, one of the words originally that Islam meant, or one of the words it means, is also graven idol. The
Yes, you
root
showed us
Salim
that.
is graven. This is a pillar idol. This is an upright idol right here.
Hmm.
So this is a grave. These are graven idols. These are pillar idols, right?
Yeah.
So this is what Abraham worshipped.
Yeah. And this is kind of what we imagine when Muhammad destroyed in the Kaaba, the
Yes.
360
Yeah. So
graven
Isarat,
idols.
well, what is this argument going on? So, guys, just give me a specific claim that he's making that seems false. I'd love to know what it is that you guys are arguing about. Okay. So Canopus Alpha Carinae cons. Okay. Lunus,
Mhm.
an Egyptian deity. Okay. With a crescent and a disc. So now you've got Egyptian deities with crescent and disc. Same symbol as Islam. Crescent and star. But if you look
Mhm.
at the symbol of Al-Makkah, is crescent and disc. We've covered that. Lustration is a religious rite practiced by the ancients, consists in washing, okay, the hands and sometimes the whole body. Now, a symbol of the internal purification of the heart. So you'd wash the body as an internal of the symbolic purification of the heart. That's a ceremony preparatory to initiation in the ancient mysteries of Egypt. What happens to Muhammad? His chest gets cut open, his heart gets literally washed by the angels.
True, yes.
He goes
He
one
gets
better.
open heart surgery performed on him. Exactly. What did they wash it with? Do you remember the exact? It was this whole thing of purification.
Golden basin with Zamzam water and ice or something. Is that frozen Zamzam water?
Something, yeah. And I don't know, Lloyd, if you've also heard when he goes to, I don't know if this is even a true story or not from the scripture, but when he was on the journey of Mirage, he was offered milk and offered, I think it was a choice between milk and wine, and he chose the milk again. That
Yes.
symbolized
Yes.
his purity and the purification, and how Muhammad is so blah blah blah. I can't even say the
Yeah.
words anymore.
I know, I know. That's in
Yeah.
the Sira. I'd have to go through the Sira, but
Okay.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Sira deifies Muhammad.
But
It makes him into a magical being, the equivalent of Jesus, God, basically. It makes him God.
yeah,
So
for
this
real.
is okay. So notice this is the Kaaba, the orientation. It's roughly north, south, east, west. It's not quite, okay?
Hmm.
So now you've got the setting point of the three stars of the handle of the plow. This is oriented on. This side of the Kaaba is oriented to the summer sunrise, this to the winter sunset, and this side here is the rising point of Canopus, right? So this has
Hmm. Yeah.
astrological connotations,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Sure.
So now you've got, and the first of the winds is the Saba, which is easterly of the Kaaba, the wall between the black stone and the southern corner. That's here, okay? And this wind blows between summer sunrise and the rising point of Canopus. So this points in the direction of that wind. The second is the Janub, which is southerly and blows from the rising point of Canopus to the winter sunset. So this is the direction of that wind, right? The third one is
Okay.
Dabur, which is westerly, and it blows from between the winter sunset to the setting point of the three stars. So that is this wind. This is the direction of that wind. Or actually, no, this is not the direction quite of the north, south, east, west, but it's the direction of the winds.
Right. Okay.
It's oriented on the winds, right? And the
Hmm.
fourth one is the shamal. So it's meteorological as well as astrological.
Yeah, wow. Fully all-encompassing there.
Yeah. And so basically we're about to finish the last couple of slides. So Yemeni people were a mixture of Jewish and Christians late in history, together with a mixture of adherents of indigenous beliefs. The last Himmerite king, Du Nawas, converted to Judaism and subsequently ordered a massacre of Christians. Survivors called for help from the Byzantine emperor in the name of Aksumite Christians of Yemen. This enabled the Aksumites to dominate Yemen and even threaten to control the area around Mecca and Medina. The Himyarites then called the Persian Empire for help, which led to the absorption of Yemen into Persia. Subsequently, Yemen came to be governed by the Umayyad Caliphate in Damascus and afterwards by the Abbasids in Baghdad. So now, author Jean Durres, in the secret books of the Egyptian Gnostics, Seth is known in Islam and usually assimilated to Agathodaimon, who's one of the great figures of Hermetic literature. They got that in Haran. The prophetic prestige with which the Gnostics endowed him he still possesses, especially in traditions of various Shiite groups. They are much more open. You see, the Sunnis do it too, but they keep it secret.
Yeah,
the Shiites
yeah.
are much more open about it. You see, so they took this Hermetic literature they got in Haran, in Turkey, okay? They absorbed it. And therefore, chiefly in Mesopotamia or in Iran, and these two particular doctrines, the survival of Gnostic themes is ubiquitous and seems immense.
Wow.
So Gnostic doctrines, Hermetic doctrines, the ancient magic of Egypt is very much part and parcel of Islam. It's just kept secret.
Have you, just as a personal thing, have you looked into any of those Shia sources, Lloyd? Like, is that an interest of yours to deep look into that and
a little
see?
bit. Look, I don't understand much of it. I haven't had so much time to look into various things.
Yeah, for
So
sure. Because
I
I
don't know as
really
much.
know so little about Shia scripture as well, but that would be fascinating, right? To see
It's
how
magic,
much
it's geometry, it's incantations, and apparently, look, as far as I can tell, it gets really deep and dark. It's very complex. It's an
Oh,
entire
wow.
subject which is completely unknown within Islam.
Yeah.
So understand, Seth is Gnostic. Yeah, it's a compass for the desert, but it's a
That's a good way to put it.
Neolithic. It's like Stonehenge of
Mm.
Arabia. And you know what? I can actually just end here, but let me just end this. So this final slide, if I recall, yeah. So now you've got only olives would require the growing conditions found in Yemen and Nabatea. Okay, so in other words, so Yemen also meets the same conditions that you would have for Petra. If the Petra thesis is correct, Yemen could also meet those conditions for Petra. Right? It has the same conditions. Okay,
Yeah.
both are at either end of Western Arabia's overland trade route. Okay, so there was an overland trade route, just by the way. Thus, almost everything in the Quran's early surahs is compatible with also Yemen.
Yeah,
So now,
sure.
so this is an article by someone who wrote, so revisionists must reckon with two other facts which argue against Islam's Nabatean origins. The presence of 200 Ethiopian, Amharic and Ethiopic loanwords in the Quran. Because if you look at the north, you've got Coptic, only 10 words in the Quran, but there's more than 200. There's like over 200 Ethiopic and Amharic, Ethiopian words in the Quran. Quranic references to pagan idol worship and animal sacrifice, significant linguistic borrowing suggests extensive cross-cultural interaction, and of course you had massive Ethiopian influence at one time for decades, for hundreds of years, right? All the Ethiopian links to Muhammad, his midwife, his wet nurse, being with him his whole life from birth to death. She was Ethiopic, and many other references. So if the Quran's early surahs were addressed to the inhabitants of Petra, you'd expect more Coptic than Ethiopic, since Nabatea was much closer culturally to Egypt than to Ethiopia. Yet Amharic and Ethiopic words in the Quran stand in a 20-to-1 ratio to Coptic words. And that's why the next part of this, when I finish it, is about the Ethiopian connection to Islam, which is the Ethiopian Christian connection to Islam.
Yeah, which, Lloyd, as well, you see so closely related and linked to the Islamic story when you talk about the migration to Abyssinia, which is like documented as a safe haven for Muslims at the time.
Hijrah.
Exactly, the first hijrah was actually was to Abyssinia, and again, this is what points to that. You would think that they would go somewhere a lot more geographically accessible to them, but like you brought up in the earlier presentation, how would they know that safety would be ensured and guaranteed for them there? That's also a talking point and something to look into.
Yeah, so they were clearly on friendly terms, or their religions were similar.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, feel free to wrap it up, Lloyd, however you'd like.
So guys, that's it. I am done. I'm done here.
My
This
gosh. Is it. I want to give you a round of applause myself, Lloyd. That was, I don't even know what to say. That was a hell of a journey. It was insanely fascinating. You've dropped so many tidbits of information along the way about other rabbit holes in their own right, which I would love to deep dive into and have you back. And now, because of all of this presentation as well, just the fact that you've said like it is another contender out there for the Petra theory. So people like this is something that obviously like Lloyd has deliberated on, and again it's going to go further and extend to the Ethiopian connection as well. But for now, this is putting Yemen on the spotlight and saying this is a massive contender for having crazy connections and links to Islam and what was happening in the vicinity and surrounding areas. But also the journey you've taken us on to show us, just knock at the door of how dark and deep Sharia is, and the occultish elements of Sufism and how that plays into things. I just think I cannot thank you enough, Lloyd, for how much I've learnt from you. And before we let Lloyd go today, I'd say we have just hit the 2-hour mark, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in now and we'll try and address a couple before we let Lloyd go, because I also just want to get Lloyd's thoughts on how it's been for you, Lloyd, delivering this presentation, and hopefully you've had, I don't know, just questions or indicators or anything to kind of get you interested in other things. And also just I hope the fact that you enjoyed presenting it to my audience. And I have to say, given the amount of controversy this initially caused, again, I want to say thank you so much. You and I obviously don't necessarily believe in God or the same God, but you've come here and you've shared something so important to me as somebody personally interested in how the hell did Islam get to be what it is today. And if I found darkness in the two basic sets of scripture that we're supposed to use to live our life righteously, you have gone and showed that beyond that it's even worse. And I would never have been able to find this out if it hadn't been for you. And also a massive shout out to Adam Seeker, because he does he has a channel in Urdu and English, so I usually listen to him in Urdu to improve my own. But he's actually the reason I came across Lloyd and reached out to Lloyd, going out on a limb. I had no idea how you would respond. So thank you so much, Lloyd. And any comments you have on everything you've done and all the time you've spent here.
No, you're very welcome. No, thank you. I'm so glad that you have an open mind, that your audience is actually really engaged. I mean, really engaged, really curious, really interesting. Asked some great questions. We've had some very funny moments, and yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. I'm happy to come back and do more. I wanted to show you something when you spoke of darkness. We've yeah, if there's any questions. Oh, so this is. I'll just so do me a favor, just read the, okay, this is a very famous book for women in Sunni Islam. Okay.
Oh no.
Just read that, please. And I'll tell you this, I promise you, I've sat here and I've been in shock and I've wanted to cry, or I've shed tears, because it is disgusting to read this. But just read this and tell me what you think.
Where would you like me to read from, Lloyd, if a person has from there?
Yeah, do that, yeah.
Okay. Fiqh to educate women. If a person has sexual intercourse with a minor girl, ghusl will not be obligatory on her. Ghusl is the bathing after sex, yeah? So, but in order to get her into the habit, she should be made to bathe or bath. If a woman is
what does minor mean? What does minor mean?
It's a girl who's not even had her period yet at all. She's not gone through puberty. She is not ready to be engaging in sexual intercourse or being raped or having any form of penetration at that age. Your body is not ready.
Yeah, so read this one, the middle one.
Okay. If a woman is underage, but not so small that if one has intercourse with her, there is a fear of the vaginal tissues tearing to such an extent that the vagina and anus will virtually come together. Then, by the insertion of the glands of the penis into her vagina, ghusl will become fard, like obligatory, on the man if he has reached the age of puberty. Oh my God, However, if there is the aforementioned fear in a very very minor girl. Lloyd, can you imagine if they have to differentiate between minor and very minor? How young we're talking now? Like toddlers?
Infants are legal.
Babies?
Toddlers are legal. It is legal. Infants are fair game. You must understand there is no lower age limit. There is none. Do you understand how disgusting this is? How evil this is?
Yeah.
You see?
I
So, yeah.
Oh, exactly. I don't even think I
This
can
is
stomach to read the rest, but feel free to go ahead if you can,
so
Lloyd.
this is Islam. Understand? This is
Genuinely
Islam.
can't.
This is legalized pedophilia.
No, this is actually, yeah, it's so disturbing. It is so disturbing in so many different kind of ways. But you know, Lloyd, I thought I had a cap on how disturbing it was, but you've just gone and shown me that I have just scratched the surface on how, you know, it's they've got laws and the mandatory and not mandatory baths for the toddler, the minor, the men themselves, these old men that could be the age of her grandfather, sorry, raping this woman. And there's steps on whether you should bathe or not depending on the penetration, if you've ripped her vaginal tissues. How is this considered a religion or a spiritual path or a way to morally live? Oh, I can't even. It's vile. And John Stockman, you are most definitely right. It's the foulest, and that's why it's so important to speak about this. This isn't benign as a religion. It's not like, oh, do what you want, you know, behind closed doors. It's you're worshipping a man. Well, it goes even darker because of this presentation. We know what you're actually worshipping now, but you are worshipping a man who has set all of this into motion. This, like the rules we just showed you, the descriptions on how to penetrate a toddler, a minor, a very young minor, or whatever the wording was. I couldn't even process it.
I mean, I can show you where a man can be fined or prosecuted by a judge for falsely accusing his infant wife of cheating on him with another man.
Oh my word.
Now, infant is defined in the Sharia as a baby in the cradle.
Oh my gosh, Lloyd, no, a bit because there is a story relating to this. There was something about some baby or some infant being accused of adultery. This is a thing. You're right. You're
Yes,
right,
I can
Lloyd.
show you the law. Understand? This is. When I first read this, I had no idea how. I was not expecting it. Understand?
Yeah.
I'm reading this, and I'm reading a glut of this stuff, and I'm looking it up in different manuals, and I'm confirming it across different manuals, and I sat here in shock. I mean, emotionally, I was traumatized. I can't explain to you how horrified I was.
Oh, I completely hear that. I just kudos to you, Lloyd, to having the guts to go on and dig deeper. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not easy reading by any means. This is not bedtime reading or let me this honestly makes you want to throw up inside, and you feel so helpless because like that's why I really genuinely latch on to Aisha as being like one of the heroines of Islam at the time, because I can only imagine the age that she was married off to Muhammad, and even the story behind that, like, you know, how they got the how the marriage was arranged and how the prophet kind of was so adamant. And then I've gone as far as to show in the Sirah in one of my other videos that there was another baby that the prophet had his eye on, and he said, if she grows up before I die, or if I don't die before she was literally a newborn baby, Lloyd, like newborn, wrapped up probably as we'd assume today, you know, like a newborn baby, and the prophet is looking and lusting after this newborn, saying that if I'm still alive when she gets a bit older, she's my new wife.
Yeah.
This is the man that these people revere and say his sweat smelled like roses and all that crap.
His poop smelled like roses too.
Yeah. His poop
And
was
don't forget,
the ground would open up to yeah, sorry, go on. going into a barrage
And this
of
is the
Muhammad.
perfect religion. Today I've perfected your religion for you.
Exactly.
Right? And Muslims will defend this. They have to. They're forced to defend this.
Yeah.
So
100%.
so Muslims will want you to look at the Quran and Hadith because legally this is what they are allowed access to. The Quran and I would say some Hadith. Right. However, those are not complete. Right. The final product of Islam and the agenda of Islam is the Sharia. The Sharia is the final product of all of those Islamic scriptures. This is the final product, and this is what they have to do.
Yeah.
So that is crime. Yeah, that is a crime. It is, and there's a reason why, for instance, Aisha never had children. Apparently, is because when you have sex with a very young girl, you destroy her vagina, and she cannot bear children. So this is assumed to be what the case is, right? And it's horrible. It's horrifying, and I mean it's growing because also like in South Africa last year, I think there are 900 cases of 960 cases, I think last year in my home country of 9 and 10-year-old girls having children.
Yeah, there's been cases in Afghanistan as well, Lloyd. Yeah, same thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could stomach any much more of this, Lloyd. Is there anything you wanted to show us or?
No, unless you want me to, unless there's any questions. But I finished my presentation. I hope that was enlightening and made sense to everyone.
Yeah,
I have to give you a fresh link for all my files. I need to upload back to Google. I have to make a new Google account, and but it said it disappeared a couple of days ago.
Yeah, no. Well, when you sort that out, please obviously let us know. I'll update it in the description. Everything you've put, because people will be watching this back and they can cross-reference whatever they need to. But also whoever's watching as well. Yeah, very true. Think of Rotherham exactly. Honestly, where that Muslim mentality thrives and they know what they're doing and the reasons behind why they're doing it, it is pure. It's a calamity to humanity. It really is. And the people that suffer the most are always women and babies, literally young children. This is what Islam does. Hey Ray, thank you so much for joining and being here.
Siraj Haq is lying. He says, I never said that, nor I endorsed it ever. That is unfair and unjust in the sight of Allah. No, Allah made that legal. Muhammad did it. It is legal. Will you condemn Muhammad for child rape? Yes or no? Say, I condemn Muhammad for child rape. I condemn Muhammad for making diddling infants in the cradle legal. Put that in the chat. I condemn them. Okay? Because this is legal in Islam. It is not a crime. It is not even a sin. So understand, you are that is your law. That is your law. That is the law of Allah. It is the law of Muhammad. So please do not lie to me. I know this stuff way better than you do, Siraj. If you want to have a little discussion one fine day, we can find out how well you know this.
Yeah, 100%. And probably as expected, as Allied Atheist Alliance is saying, there's going to be complete silence on the matter because they have to defend the indefensible. Lloyd, that's exactly what they have to do. Oh, thank you, Ray. Thank you so
everyone.
much.
I mean, seriously, you guys have also been a great audience and really great interaction. And sorry, Trevor, I got a little annoyed there, but so my apologies. But yeah, so Lehistan and Allah, Kiko, I have no idea what Lehistan is, to be honest. I have no idea. Did I miss any questions?
Not that I was aware of now. I know there were a couple of questions as we were going through the presentation in the meantime, but I also wanted to stay on track with you, so I must have missed a few. I think some of them were, one of the questions I saw a couple of times was relating to the prayer hat that Muslim men wear to pray, and if that had any relation to any symbolism or anything.
It's probably just copied from the Jews. It's probably just copied from the Jewish practice.
That's what I assumed as well. Yeah. 100%. But yeah, other than that, I wasn't able to keep up. But Lloyd, I'm sure in the comments, and if we watch this back in the live chat, when it loads, we can always go ahead and answer people's questions. But I just wanted to say, please, please, please do definitely come back soon, because as Lloyd said, Lloyd is digging all of you as an audience, and I'm so proud of all of us and like the questions we've asked and what we've kind of managed to get out of this presentation and explore all together. So thank you all so much for your comments, for chiming in, for prodding us and making us think twice about something, for letting us know in the comments, giving us great feedback. Oh, Ray was expecting me to wrap the previous comment. Sorry, Ray, I completely missed that. But yes, please do come back, Lloyd. And Norse, you can always go back and watch it. No worries. Take your time now. Part 1 to 6 is out there for the world to see. So I know a couple of people were binge watching it, and they got a lot of information that way. But yeah, I just wanted to round this up and say thank you so much once again, Lloyd. And I mean, please do promise us that you will grace us with your presence again soon, and let's unpack more of Islam from your angle.
Yeah, maybe we can do occultism. Start with that. Gnosticism and occultism, Islam, and their connections
100%.
to secret societies and things like that. That might be
Yes,
interesting.
let's touch occultism, Sufism, and Sharia. We'll definitely collab for at some point later in the next couple of months. Yeah?
Yeah, we shall. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, Nuria. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. It's been really interesting, and I appreciate the interaction.
No, thank you, Lloyd, and I wish you all the best for your upcoming collaborations. And I really think that you have some solid material here to put Yemen and potentially even Ethiopia up as a massive contender for the origins of proto-Islam. I mean, I'm very impressed with the information that you've provided thus far and all the sources to back it up, and the new archaeological information and these new findings that you're adding to the bulk of your thesis along the way. So kudos, Lloyd, and please keep it up. And you are always welcome on this channel. You are more than welcome. Please treat it like your own. But yeah, other than that, let's do this again soon, and take care, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, if only Lloyd could destroy them all one by one, I'm here for it.
You know what? I probably actually, I if I sat down, I probably could. But yeah, it's not the way I focus my mind. I'm so busy with so many other things right now that it's a lot of work. It's time.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate that, Lloyd. And I can only assume how much time and effort has gone into just this itself. And there's only 24 hours in a day. So I struggle as it is. I don't know how you do all of this. But very, very, very much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome, sir. I'm just looking at the comments on the side. Yeah.
That's okay. You know what? Then we could go on for ages because there's so many comments coming through. But I will pull the plug and let us wrap this up now. So, oh yeah, oh my days! I did it for you, Josie. Today you got you got it. Almost every sentence Lloyd tells me I could potentially say it, but I'm like, okay, no. But
no,
yeah,
you know what? There's a question from Jojo. Says, can you separate Muslims from Islam? Now,
ooh, where is that? Let me find it.
Please say there's a difference between Muslims and what they believe in Islam. Look, to not be a whole night, Muslims must believe in everything that Muhammad brought. Now, the problem is that Muhammad left in his place his regents, who are the imams that wrote the fiqh. They have finally collated the Sharia. So Muslims are beholden to and must believe in all of the Sharia. To reject it is kufr. The penalty is death. So if Muslims do not accept any of these things, then they are beyond the pale of Islam. They've become an apostate and they must be killed. Understand? So unless you renounce Islam, unless you reject it, right, then it must be assumed that by implicitly or explicitly you support this. So unless you explicitly reject it, we have to assume that implicitly you do accept this, because you must love Muhammad and everything that he brought. You cannot reject any of it. I've covered some of this in the Sharia. I've actually spoken and shown this throughout the various episodes. So yes, unfortunately, if you're an Orthodox Muslim, you accept all of this. This is part and parcel of your deen. This is your deen. Deal with it, live with it, accept it or leave it. Either you say, yes, I support this pedophilia, or I reject it and I walk away from this deen.
The only other little caveat I'd add to that is, in my opinion, I think a lot of Muslims, especially the ones I know and love, are far better than Islam. So the caveat I would throw in is that
Agreed. Yeah,
a lot of them are ignorant as to, like, yes, by default, I was one of them. I had to follow and love and adore the Prophet and put him above anything. But once I knew the reality behind the man, his own interpersonal relationships, the wars he waged, the battles he ordered, commanded, that all went away. A lot of these Muslims are better than what their scriptures tell them, and it's because they actually don't know what their scriptures entail to that degree.
Agreed.
And that is, and again, I think ignorance is a choice in this day and age. So it's, the onus is on them to look at it, because we're here saying this is bad and you can't just bury your head in the sand and ignore it. But again, there's only so much you can tell somebody that is messed up, because from where you're standing in a general worldview perspective, they also think marrying a 6-year-old and having sex with a 9-year-old is disgustingly abhorrent. It's wrong for any day and age.
But
whatever.
are they going to oppose the caliphate when it comes down, like under ISIS? Or will they be killed? And also, the imams are allowed to lie to Muslims as well.
Oh, yeah.
Imams are allowed to lie.
True, yeah.
So to make Islam look pleasant, they're allowed to lie to you. They're allowed to lie to everybody. So they also are lied to, and they don't believe it's true because they've been lied to. So hopefully, Jojo, that answers that.
Yeah, that was a really good answer, Lloyd. Thank you.
Josie.
Yeah, I agree
so
as well, Josie.
Muslims are victims of Islam too, to be quite honest.
Yeah, true. But this is it. I think Norse has hit the nail on the head. Once they find out, the onus is on them to condemn it. Because, I mean, coming from, if you even have a little bit of humanity and humility in you, you would condemn that behavior straight off the cuff. Like, you don't need to. And again, the saddest part in all of this is what Lloyd is saying. Most Muslims would see this and they're confronted with it, even through ex-Muslim YouTube channels like my own and all the various other ones. They're confronted with the worst of Islam that we try and put out there in their face. Then they go running back to their scholars. And as Lloyd said, they're allowed they're expressively allowed by Islam to lie to them. So they will keep them in that place of like this bubble and say, no, and justify it and say anything else. Like, there was some ridiculous arguments lately about, well, Islam had sex slavery, but Mars and Cadbury, they also engage slave labor, so America is bad. And it's like, these are the little bits of information they get from their scholars to come back and fight us with this tidbit of information. So it's a really sad kind of like cycle where we show them what is actually said, and then they go back and they get comfortable in the lie again because they've been outrightly lied to by that person of authority. So that's why I go further and push and say, forget the middleman, forget going to the imam or the sheikh or the scholar. Just trust yourself and trust what you're reading. If this is coming from your own eternal divine books, there's no reason to question the validity of it. You don't need a man who has probably got half a brain cell compared to what you've got telling you what it actually, or what it should, or what it means to say. But yeah. But yes, okay. Thank you, guys. Lloyd, sorry for running over once again. It always happens that way. You are so in demand, and I know there's other questions here that we haven't answered. But we will obviously have Lloyd again, and we'll deep dive into all of this, and hopefully, we'll be able to interact with him a lot more. And I would like to get his personal thoughts on so many things, which I couldn't also get from this presentation. I wanted to stick to it, but I have so many questions for Lloyd as well. So definitely we'll arrange something soon. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you so much, Lloyd, and have a good evening, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.